Hello everyone and welcome. This is the fiction world speaking. We have handpicked a wonderful story for today. What if Izuku was betrayed and got the Chaquetrix with a breeding harem of Ian, Xylene and all Omnitrix girl aliens? New videos drop regularly, so subscribe and hit the bell to stay updated. And don't forget to like if you enjoy the story. Shall we begin? Here goes. Chapter 1, Ashes. The evidence spread across Principal Nizu's desk looked damning. Screenshots of messages. Quirk analysis documents with UA security layouts. Communication logs timestamped over 6 months. Izuku Midoriya stood in the center of the office, surrounded by everyone he'd ever trusted. Class 1A lined the walls. Aizawa stood by the window, arms crossed. All Might sat in a chair that creaked under his skeletal frame, refusing to meet Izuku's eyes. And Katsuki Bakugo stood directly in front of him, holding a tablet, practically vibrating with vindicated rage. Found it on his computer, Bakugo said, swiping through the evidence. Hidden folder. Encrypted, but not well enough. 6 months of communication with the League of Villains. Detailed breakdowns of every student's quirk weaknesses. Security patrol schedules. Entry points. That's not, I didn't, Izuku's voice cracked. He looked around the room desperately. Uraraka wouldn't meet his eyes. Ida stared at the floor. Todoroki's expression was carved from ice. The evidence is comprehensive, Nizu said, his voice carrying that unsettling calm that preceded his worst decisions. We've had our own analysts verify the metadata. The messages originated from your personal devices, Midoriya. Someone planted it. I would never, you know me. You've all known me for over a year. We thought we knew you. Aizawa's voice cut through the room. Turns out we didn't know anything. Izuku turned to All Might. His mentor. The man who'd given him everything. All Might, please. You have to believe me. I've dedicated my entire life to becoming a hero. Why would I throw that away? All Might finally looked at him. The disappointment in those sunken eyes hit Izuku harder than any punch ever had. Young Midoriya. Izuku. I wanted to believe in you. I did believe in you. But the evidence. He stood slowly, and Izuku saw tears forming in the corners of his eyes. I trusted you with One for All. I chose you as my successor. And you used that trust to betray everything we stand for. I didn't. Shut up, Deku. Bakugo stepped forward, getting in his face. You're done. You've always been a lying, scheming piece of shit, and now everyone can finally see it. All that muttering, all that analysis, you were cataloging us. Preparing us for slaughter. Kaken, you know me better than anyone. You know I could never, I know you're a fake. Bakugo's eyes burned with something beyond anger. Satisfaction. Relief. Like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. I always knew something was wrong with you. Nobody's that nice. Nobody tries that hard without an angle. And here it is. Here's your angle. Izuku looked around the room one more time. 20 faces he'd fought beside, bled with, laughed with. 20 people he would have died for without hesitation. Not one of them spoke up for him. The commission has been informed, Nizu continued. However, before we transfer you to their custody, there's the matter of One for All. Izuku's blood went cold. What? All Might stepped forward. I need to take it back, my boy. I can't let that power be used against innocent people. You understand? You can't, I didn't do anything wrong. You can't take it from me based on fabricated evidence. The evidence isn't fabricated. Aizawa activated his quirk, and Izuku felt One for All go quiet inside him. Hold him. Kirishima and Sato moved before Izuku could react. They grabbed his arms, forcing him to his knees. He struggled, but without One for All active, he was just a scrawny kid against two enhanced humans. All Might, please. Please. The skeletal man knelt in front of him. There were definitely tears now, streaming down his gaunt cheeks. I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm so sorry. But I have to protect people from you. That's what heroes do. He placed his hand on Izuku's forehead. The transfer was nothing like receiving the power had been. That had been warmth, hope, potential flooding through every cell. This was amputation. This was having his soul reach out through every nerve ending and then being ripped out by the roots. Izuku screamed, really screamed, the kind of sound that made Uraraka cover her ears and Kota flee the room entirely. When it was over, Izuku slumped in Kirishima's grip. Empty. Hollow. Less than he'd been before he'd ever met All Might, because now he knew exactly what he'd lost. Izuku Midoriya. Aizawa's voice came from somewhere far away. You are hereby expelled from UA High School. You will be remanded to Hero Commission custody pending trial. Your hero license application is permanently rejected. You are forbidden from. Izuku stopped listening. What was the point? They'd already decided. They'd all already decided. Kirishima's grip loosened slightly. Midoriya, I'm sorry it came to this. Izuku looked up at him. At the guy who'd given speeches about manliness and standing by your friends. No, you're not. They escorted him out through the front gate. No back exit, no subtlety. They wanted everyone to see. Students from other courses lined the windows, watching the traitor's walk of shame. At the gate, commission agents waited with quirk-suppressing cuffs. But the agent in charge frowned at his tablet. Transfer's been delayed. Political situation. We'll take custody tomorrow. Aizawa shrugged. Then he's no longer UA's problem. Get off school property, Midoriya. If you're seen here again, you'll be arrested for trespassing. The agents drove away. Aizawa walked back inside. The gate closed. And Izuku stood alone on the sidewalk, quirkless, expelled, and utterly destroyed. The first 3 days were a blur. Izuku walked. He didn't know where he was going. He just walked until his feet bled and then kept walking. He went home once. Just once. The apartment was empty. His mother's things were gone. There was a note on the kitchen table, written in handwriting he didn't recognize. For the safety of Inko Midoriya, she has been relocated. Any attempt to contact her will be considered a violation of the protective order and grounds for immediate incarceration. HPSC they'd taken his mother. Convinced her, or forced her, to abandon him. Izuku stood in the empty apartment for an hour. Then he walked out and didn't look back. The commission agents found him on day 4. They weren't there to arrest him. The political situation was still ongoing, whatever that meant. They were there to make sure he knew his place. 3 of them. Plain clothes, but the way they moved screamed government training. Midoriya Izuku. The commission wants you to understand something. The lead agent smiled without any warmth. There's not going to be a trial. Trials are public. Messy. Instead, you're going to disappear into a facility where we study dangerous quirk-related phenomena. You'll be very useful to us there. I don't have a quirk anymore. We know. But you held one for all. That leaves traces. Traces we can extract and study. It'll hurt quite a lot. We thought you should know that. Have a few days to think about what's coming. They left him in an alley with 2 cracked ribs and a face that wouldn't stop bleeding. Izuku crawled into a dumpster and stayed there for 16 hours. By week 2, he'd found the junkyard. It was on the outskirts of Mizudafu, far enough from the main city that heroes rarely patrolled. The owner had died years ago and the property was tied up in legal disputes, so nobody came to collect the garbage. Mountains of rusted cars, broken appliances, and discarded furniture created a maze that kept out prying eyes. Izuku found a van that still had most of its windows. He kicked out the remaining glass, swept out the worst of the debris, and made it his home. Surviving wasn't as hard as he'd expected. Restaurants threw out food that was still edible. Clothing donation bins weren't well guarded. The junkyard itself provided materials for a rain catch, a makeshift heating element built from car batteries, and enough scrap metal to create basic tools. His body adapted faster than his mind. He lost weight he couldn't afford to lose, then stabilized. He got sick twice and recovered both times through sheer stubbornness. His hands developed calluses. His feet toughened. His mind, though. His mind was a different story. Every night, he dreamed about the office. About Bakugo's satisfied smirk. About All Might's tears as he ripped away everything Izuku had ever wanted. About Uraraka looking away. Every morning, he woke up and wondered why he bothered. But he kept going. He didn't know why. Maybe he was too stubborn to die. Maybe some part of him was waiting for something, even though he couldn't imagine what. On day 18, he found a cracked phone in a pile of electronics. The screen was shattered and the battery was dying, but he rigged it to one of his car batteries and got it working enough to access basic internet. He shouldn't have looked. He knew he shouldn't have looked. But he looked. Traitor confirmed, former UA student exposed as League informant. His face was everywhere. The commission had released selected evidence to the media. Pundits debated whether he should be executed or just imprisoned forever. Former classmates gave interviews expressing shock and horror that they'd studied alongside such a monster. Bakugo's interview was the longest. He described years of warning signs he'd nobly ignored, hoping to reform his childhood friend. He talked about the burden of uncovering the truth. He was practically glowing with heroic energy. The comment sections were worse. People who'd never met Izuku fantasizing about what they'd do to him if they got the chance. Detailed descriptions of violence. Casual discussions of torture. And the heroes. The heroes he'd admired, the heroes he'd wanted to join, they all condemned him. All Might gave a statement about the dangers of misplaced trust. Endeavor called for stricter background checks. Even small-time heroes used his disgrace to boost their own profiles. Izuku threw the phone against the van wall. It shattered into pieces. Then he picked up the pieces, because he might need the parts later. He didn't cry. He was past crying. He was past feeling much of anything. On day 19, he started analyzing quirks again. He didn't mean to. He was watching heroes through a gap in the junkyard fence, a patrol passing by, and his brain just did it. Cataloged their movements. Noted weaknesses. Calculated countermeasures. He caught himself and almost laughed. Almost. What was the point of analyzing heroes now? He'd never fight alongside them. He'd never be one of them. He was nothing. Less than nothing. But his brain kept doing it anyway. Old habits carved too deep to break. On day 21, something fell from the sky. The crash woke him from a dreamless sleep. The sound was wrong for an explosion, no combustion, no secondary detonations. Just a massive crack of impact followed by a groaning, settling noise like a building collapsing in slow motion. Izuku was moving before he consciously decided to. Not toward safety. Toward the sound. He told himself it was curiosity. Or maybe he just didn't care enough about survival anymore to avoid potential danger. The crater was at the far end of the junkyard, carved into a hill of scrap metal. Steam rose from its edges. Something glowed at the bottom, not fire, but a pulsing purple-white light that hurt to look at directly. Izuku slid down the crater's edge, using chunks of debris as handholds. The heat increased as he descended, but it wasn't burning heat. It was more like standing too close to a speaker playing a frequency just outside human hearing. uncomfortable in a way he couldn't quite identify. The glow came from a ship. Or what had been a ship. It was cracked open like an egg, spilling viscous fluid and sparking machinery across the crater floor. The design was nothing like any vehicle Izuku had ever seen, organic curves mixed with crystalline structures, colors that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. Alien. It had to be alien. There was no other explanation. Movement from inside the wreckage. Izuku grabbed a metal pipe, he'd learned to always have a weapon in reach, and approached slowly. She was dying. That was obvious immediately. The alien woman was humanoid but clearly not human. Her skin was pale purple, almost translucent, and geometric patterns pulsed across it like circuitry. Her eyes, when they opened, were completely white, no iris, no pupil, but somehow still conveyed exhaustion and pain. Her armor was purple-black metal that seemed to fold in on itself, and it was cracked in a dozen places, leaking something that might have been blood if blood glowed faintly blue. In her arms, she clutched an object. A gauntlet of some kind, sleek black metal with a green core that pulsed in rhythm with her failing heartbeat. "Human," she said. Her voice was strange, like multiple voices speaking in almost perfect unison. "Come closer." Izuku should have run. That was the smart thing to do. But when had he ever done the smart thing? He knelt beside her, close enough to see the patterns on her skin flickering erratically. "You're hurt. I can try to find help." "No help. No time." She coughed, and blue glowing blood spattered her lips. "I am Talia. Cronian warrior. I have been running for. I do not know. Time is different when you are of the time stream. Cronian. Unimportant. What matters is this." She held up the gauntlet. The green core pulsed faster, and Izuku felt something resonate in his chest, a tugging sensation, like being called by a voice he couldn't quite hear. The Chaquetrix. More advanced than the Omnitrix, built by my people to fight the extinction of all things. It needs a host. I'm nobody. I don't even have a quirk anymore. I used to, but, I know. Her white eyes seemed to look through him somehow. "I can sense the wound where your power was torn from you. The emptiness where something precious used to live." Her hand reached out and gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "That emptiness is why you are perfect." "What?" "The Shaketrix does not want power. Power is easy. Power is everywhere. The Shaketrix wants connection. It wants someone who knows how to love with nothing held back, who will bond with its gifts completely. It wants someone who has been broken and chooses to rebuild." She pressed the gauntlet against his forearm. It was cold at first, then warm, then he couldn't feel the temperature at all because the sensation transcended physical sensation entirely. "It wants you, Izuku Midoriya. How do you know my name?" "The Shaketrix has been searching for a host across dimensions. It found your resonance. Your emotional frequency. It has been calling you for months, but you could not hear it through all that pain." Her grip tightened. "You can hear it now, can't you?" He could. The tugging in his chest had resolved into something like music, not heard but felt, a harmony that vibrated through his bones. "Yes," he whispered. "Then accept. Bond. Become what you were always meant to be." The gauntlet opened like a flower and wrapped around his forearm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pain hit. It felt like being unmade. Like every cell in his body was being examined, catalogued, rewritten. His DNA screamed as it was restructured. His nervous system lit up like a switchboard overloading. He would have collapsed, but Talia held him upright. "The bonding is painful. But it will pass. And when it does." She smiled, and despite everything, there was warmth in it. "You will never be powerless again." The pain peaked. Izuku's vision went white. And then it stopped. He looked down at his arm. The gauntlet had transformed, it was sleeker now, more form-fitting, the green core glowing steadily against black metal that seemed to shift color slightly depending on the light. It felt like an extension of his body rather than something attached to it. "The Chaquetrix is yours now," Talia said. Her voice was weaker. The patterns on her skin were barely flickering. "It will teach you. Guide you. But you must find Ian. She is one of mine, one of the Cronians. She will explain what I cannot. How do I find her? The Shaketrix will call her. It calls all of them, the partners, the bonds. They will come to you." She coughed again, more blood. "But beware. There is one who hunts the Chaquetrix. Who has hunted it across 1,000 timelines. Maltruant. A chronosapien. A being of living time who seeks to prevent the Chaquetrix from ever reaching its full potential. Why? Because at full activation, the Chaquetrix creates something new. Something that threatens his control over the time stream. He will send his agents. He may already have sent them." Her eyes drifted past Izuku, toward the sky. "He may have already touched your life. The betrayal you suffered, it carries his fingerprints. The marks of temporal manipulation." Izuku's heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" "I mean your fall was engineered. Your isolation was planned. Someone wanted you broken and alone, either to destroy you completely or to ensure that when the Chaquetrix bonded, you would have no one." Talia's hand fell from his wrist. "Build your bonds, Izuku Midoriya. They are your power. They are your protection. They are the reason you will survive what's coming. But, the one who ticks like a clock. He's coming. He's always coming." Her eyes went dim. The patterns on her skin stopped flickering. Talia, Cronian warrior, died holding his hand. Izuku knelt in the crater for a long moment, processing. An alien had just died in front of him. An alien weapon was fused to his arm. His entire world had been turned upside down, again. And apparently, the betrayal that destroyed his life wasn't just petty jealousy and institutional failure. It was part of something bigger. Something cosmic. He should have felt overwhelmed. Should have felt panic. But what he actually felt, for the first time in 3 weeks, was something other than emptiness. He felt purpose. A high-pitched whine cut through the air. Izuku looked up and saw 6 objects descending through the clouds, small metallic spheres with what looked like clock faces on their surfaces, spinning at impossible speeds. The drones that Talia had warned about. Already here. Already hunting. Izuku stood, the Chaquetrix pulsing on his arm. He didn't know how to use it. Didn't know what it could do. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty, he was done being a victim. The drones hit the ground in a perfect hexagonal formation around the crater. They weren't large, maybe the size of basketballs, but something about them made Izuku's skin crawl. The clock faces on their surfaces ticked backward, and wherever their shadow fell, matter aged. Metal rusted. Plastic crumbled. The ground itself turned to dust. Izuku scrambled up the crater wall as a drone's shadow passed over where he'd been standing. The rock he'd been kneeling on collapsed into fine powder. "Okay," he muttered, "time weapons." "Great. That's fine. Everything is fine." The Chaquetrix pulsed urgently against his arm. He felt that not quite music again, but now it was accompanied by something else, an emotional impression, like someone pushing images and feelings directly into his brain. Partner. Summon. Now. He didn't know what he was doing. He acted on instinct, slapping his palm against the green core. Reality twisted. A figure materialized beside him, stepping out of nothing, as if she'd been standing in a place that didn't exist until now and had simply decided to arrive. She was tall. Taller than him by a good 6 inches. Her armor was similar to Talia's, purple-black metal that seemed to fold in on itself, but sleeker, more aggressive in its design. Her hair was white, cut short and practical, and her eyes shifted through different states like a television losing signal. Young, old, middle-aged, her face flickered between ages before settling on something that looked close to mid-20s. She took in the situation in about half a second. The drones. The crater. Izuku. You're the new host. Her voice dripped with disappointment. You're a child. I'm 16. Like I said. A drone swooped toward them, its shadow stretching hungrily. The woman, Ian, it had to be Ian, moved faster than Izuku could track. She caught the drone in one hand, and her eyes flared with purple-white light. The drone's clock face spun forward at impossible speed, its metal aging thousands of years in seconds, crumbling to rust that blew away in the wind. Stay behind me, she ordered, already engaging the next drone. Try not to die. I'd rather not be scattered across the time stream again. Scattered? The Chaquetrix bonds us. If you die, I go back to the void between moments. It's not pleasant. She reversed time around another drone, reducing it to its component parts before it had been assembled. So stay alive. The remaining 4 drones changed tactics. They stopped approaching individually and formed a tight cluster, their shadows merging into a single zone of accelerated decay. Everything in a 10-foot radius began to age, the scrap metal collapsing, the ground turning to dust, even the air somehow feeling older, heavier. Ian couldn't get close without being caught in the effect. But 2 of the drones broke formation, arrowing toward Izuku from opposite directions. He ran. There wasn't anything else he could do. He sprinted through the junkyard, ducking between piles of scrap, the drones gaining on him with every second. Their shadows stretched ahead of them like grasping hands. The bond. Use the bond. The Shaketrix pulsed again. Izuku felt something flow through him, not quite power, more like a door opening. His perception of time stretched. Suddenly, the drones weren't fast anymore. They were moving through honey. He could see the exact trajectory of their approach, the angle of their shadows, the moment their weapons would fire. He grabbed a metal pipe from a nearby pile without breaking stride. His body moved with precision he'd never possessed before, the Chaquetrix's Tier 1 resonance granting him a fraction of Cronian abilities. The first drone's shadow reached for him. He sidestepped it by 3 inches, timing his movement to the nanosecond. The drone corrected, but he was already swinging the pipe. Not at the drone itself, at the clock face on its surface. The glass cracked. The drone sparked, sputtered, and crashed into a pile of rusted cars. The second drone was already on him. No time to dodge. He brought the pipe up like a batter facing a fastball. The impact vibrated through his arms, but the drone ricocheted away, spinning wildly. It self-destructed before it hit the ground. The explosion wasn't fire. It was temporal distortion, a bubble of accelerated time that caught Izuku's left arm and aged it 30 years in half a second. He screamed as his skin wrinkled and his muscles atrophied. Then Ian was there. She grabbed him and reality twisted. They were suddenly 3 seconds ahead of themselves, standing 20 feet from where they'd been. Izuku's arm was still aged, but the pain was manageable now that the effect had stopped. That was not completely useless, Ian said, which he suspected was as close to praise as she got. Your arm will heal. The Chaquetrix reverses localized temporal damage to its host. Already, he could feel the effect receding. His skin smoothing, his muscles rebuilding. The others, he asked. Destroyed the remaining 4 while you were playing hero. Maltruant scouts are eliminated, but he knows we're here now. Ian studied him with those shifting eyes. You didn't freeze. What? When the drones attacked. Most new hosts freeze. They panic. You didn't. Izuku looked at the destruction around them, the craters, the rusted piles, the dust that had been solid ground. I've had a bad month. Freezing isn't really in my schedule. Ian's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. Less dismissive. More curious. The Chaquetrix chose you, she said. I didn't understand why. A child. A human. No existing power base, no allies, no resources. She gestured at the junkyard around them. Living in filth. Thanks for the summary. But now I see it. She stepped closer, examining him like he was a particularly interesting specimen. You've been broken. Completely. And you're still standing. Still fighting. Her lips twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. The Shaketrix doesn't need strong hosts. It needs resilient ones. Glad I meet the minimum requirements. This time she definitely smiled. It looked wrong on her face, like she hadn't done it in a very long time. We need to talk, she said. About what you've bonded with. About what's coming. About how to keep you alive long enough to actually matter. Yeah, Izuku agreed, that would be helpful. They walked out of the crater together. Izuku cast one last look at Talia's body, still visible in the wreckage. We should bury her, he said. Ian paused. Whatever she'd expected him to say, it wasn't that. She's dead. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. For a long moment, Ian just stared at him. Then she nodded slowly. Fine. We bury her. Then we talk. They buried Talia as the sun set, using scrap metal as shovels and a relatively clear patch of ground near the junkyard's edge. Izuku insisted on saying something, even though he'd known her for less than 5 minutes. She died bringing hope to someone who'd lost all of it. I didn't know her. But I'll remember her. And I'll make sure her death meant something. Ian said nothing. But when they finished filling the grave, she placed her hand against the dirt and the ground rippled. Izuku felt the Chaquetrix pulse in response. Temporal lock, Ian explained. This ground will never change. 1,000,000 years from now, her grave will be exactly as it is in this moment. The closest thing my people have to a funeral rite. Thank you. Don't thank me. She was a warrior of my people. Even if I didn't know her personally, I owed her that much. They retreated to Izuku's van. It was cramped with 2 people, but Ian didn't seem to mind, or maybe she was just too focused on more important things to care about comfort. The Chaquetrix, she began, is not like other transformation devices. The Omnitrix, if you've heard of it, allows its wielder to transform into alien species. The Chaquetrix does something different. Transform into alien women? Ian's eye twitched. No. Although I understand why you might think that, given my presence. The Chaquetrix summons partners. Real beings from across dimensions, pulled through quantum entanglement and bonded to you on a fundamental level. So you're, actually you. Not a copy or a projection. I am Ian of the Cronian people. I have lived for longer than your species has existed. I have watched empires rise and fall, seen stars born and die. And yes, I am actually me. She crossed her arms. The Chaquetrix pulled me from my own timeline at the moment of its death. One instant I was watching everything I knew unmake itself, the next I was standing in a crater next to a human child. Your timeline died. Maltruant. The one Talia warned you about. Ian's voice went flat. He collapsed my timeline into itself. Everything and everyone I knew, gone. Erased. I exist now only because the Chaquetrix requires a Cronian partner and pulled me out before the collapse completed. I'm sorry. Your sympathy is noted and irrelevant. But something in her posture suggested it wasn't entirely irrelevant. The point is, I am real. The other partners you will summon will be real. They are not tools or weapons, they are people, pulled from their own realities to bond with you. Why? Why does the Chaquetrix do this? Ian leaned back against the van's wall. Because it was designed to create something new. A hybrid species powerful enough to face extinction-level threats. Threats like maltruant. A hybrid species. The bonds aren't just emotional or psychological. At higher tiers, they become biological. Genetic. The Chaquetrix restructures your DNA, blending human genetics with partner species. And for the partners. She paused, choosing her words. The device was built to propagate. To ensure the new species would survive and spread. Izuku's face went red. You're saying, I'm saying the Shaketrix was designed with reproduction in mind, yes. The bonds deepened through intimacy. Physical intimacy. Ian watched his reaction with something like amusement. You're very red. We just met. Obviously nothing would happen immediately. The bonds develop over time. Connection first, deepening second, propagation third. She shrugged. I'm simply explaining the device's ultimate purpose. What you do with that information is your choice. But why partners? Why not just, transform me directly? Because transformation alone isn't enough. The Omnitrix tried that approach. It works for combat, for temporary problem solving. But it doesn't create genuine change. The Chaquetrix's designers realized that true power comes from connection. From people who fight for each other, who trust each other, who build something together. She met his eyes directly. You will never be alone again, Izuku Midoriya. That is what the Chaquetrix offers. A family bound by something deeper than blood. Partners who will stand with you against anything. Izuku thought about the last 3 weeks. The loneliness. The emptiness. The absolute certainty that no one in the world cared if he lived or died. And in return, you host them. Protect them. Fight alongside them. Grow with them. Ian's voice softened slightly. The Chaquetrix chose you because you know how to care about others without expecting anything back. That's rarer than you might think. A silence stretched between them. The van creaked in the night wind. What happens now? Izuku finally asked. Now we prepare. Maltruant knows the Chaquetrix has bonded. He'll send more than drones next time. And your world, she gestured vaguely toward the city lights visible in the distance. Your world's authorities will want the device. They'll try to take it from you. They can try. Ian raised an eyebrow. That's the spirit. But confidence alone won't be enough. You need to strengthen your bonds, summon more partners, develop your abilities. The Chaquetrix has tiers of power that unlock through deepening connection. Tiers. Tier 1 is resonance, basic connection. You can summon partners and use diluted versions of their abilities. That's how you perceive time differently during the drone fight. She held up 2 fingers. Tier 2 is synchronization. Deeper bond, stronger power. You can fully transform, combining your base abilities with a partner species. Tier 3 is convergence, complete fusion. 2 minds, 1 body, power beyond either of you individually. How do bonds deepen? Emotional connection. Time spent together. Trust built through shared experience. And she shrugged. Physical intimacy accelerates the process, but it's not required for lower tiers. So we should spend time together. That would be the idea, yes. Another silence. Izuku became acutely aware that he was sitting in a cramped van with an impossibly beautiful alien woman who just explained that bonding with her would eventually involve intimacy. I only have 1 blanket, he said stupidly. Ian stared at him. Then, slowly, her lips curved into that unfamiliar smile. Then I suppose you'll have to share. The next 2 days were busy. Izuku and Ian established a routine of sorts. She trained him in basic combat applications of his Tier 1 Cronian abilities, perceiving time differently, anticipating attacks before they happened, moving with precision he'd never possessed before. She was a brutal teacher. "You're too slow. You're thinking too much." A chronosapien infant could have dodged that. But she also noticed his strengths. His analytical mind. His ability to learn patterns and adapt. His sheer stubborn refusal to stay down when she knocked him down. "You fight like someone who's been losing his whole life," she observed after he'd gotten up from a hit that should have kept him on the ground. "I have been. And you're still fighting. Only thing I know how to do." At night, they talked. Ian was cagey about personal details. Centuries of survival had made her guarded, but fragments slipped through. She'd been a warrior before her timeline collapsed. She'd had people she cared about. She'd lost them all. "Why did Maltruant destroy your timeline?" Izuku asked on the second night. Ian was quiet for a long moment. "Because I refused to serve him. He wanted to use me as a weapon, and when I said no, he made an example of everything I loved. That's..." Izuku didn't have words. "Evil. Yes. Maltruant is evil in the purest sense. Not chaotic, not insane, deliberately, methodically evil. He believes he has the right to control all of time, and anyone who disagrees simply ceases to exist. And he's coming here. For the Chaquetrix. Eventually. He's patient. He'll send agents first, test our defenses, gather information. But yes, eventually, he'll come himself. Then we need to be ready." Ian looked at him with something approaching respect. "You don't seem afraid." "I am afraid. But being afraid never stopped anything. Might as well be useful while I'm terrified." She almost laughed. Almost. On the morning of day 3, the Shaketrix pulsed with a new sensation. A signal. Close. And in distress. "Another partner?" Izuku asked. Ian closed her eyes, sensing through her own connection to the device. "Yes. Uxorite. Psychic species. Powerful, if this reading is accurate." She opened her eyes. "She's in danger." They moved. Downtown Muzutafu wasn't friendly territory. Heroes patrolled constantly, and Izuku's face had been broadcast across every screen in Japan. But the signal led into the heart of the commercial district, and whoever was in danger couldn't wait for nightfall. Izuku pulled his hood low and kept his head down. Ian walked beside him with the kind of confidence that made people look away without realizing why. The signal led to an alley behind a row of restaurants. Even before they rounded the corner, Izuku heard the sounds of combat, grunts of effort, the crackle of energy, a woman's voice shouting in a language he didn't recognize. They found her fighting 8 men in civilian clothes who moved like soldiers. Commission agents. Izuku recognized the efficiency of their movements, the way they coordinated without visible communication. The woman was alien, obviously. Her skin was purple, a different shade than Ian's, more blue than violet. She was hairless, with what looked like internal organs faintly visible beneath her translucent skin. Her eyes were large and solid gold, and they glowed with psychic energy as she held 3 of the agents suspended in the air with telekinesis. But she was injured. Green blood seeped from a wound on her arm. And the remaining 5 agents were closing in with weapons that sparked with energy. "Commission Black Ops," Ian murmured. They detected the alien energy signature from Talia's crash and sent a containment team. "We help her." "Obviously." They moved together. Izuku hit the first agent from behind, using Tier 1 Cronian speed to cross the distance before the man could turn. His pipe struck the base of the agent's skull, not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to drop him. Ian engaged the next 2, her hands glowing with temporal energy. One agent aged 50 years in seconds, collapsing with a cry of confusion. The other found himself repeating the same 3 steps over and over, trapped in a localized time loop. The alien woman, Xylene, the Chaquetrix whispered, saw them and adjusted. She dropped the 3 suspended agents on top of their remaining teammates, creating a pile of tangled limbs. One agent broke free, raising his weapon toward Xylene. Izuku was already moving. He grabbed the man's arm and twisted, using the joint lock Bakugo had accidentally taught him through years of beatings. The weapon clattered to the ground. The agent responded by pulling a knife with his free hand. Izuku couldn't dodge, too close, wrong angle. Xylene's eyes flared gold. The knife ripped itself from the agent's grip and embedded itself in a nearby dumpster. The remaining agents made the smart call and ran. Whatever they'd expected, 2 aliens and a seemingly enhanced vigilante weren't it. Silence fell over the alley. Xylene turned to face them. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, tall and graceful despite her injuries, with a face that conveyed intelligence and power. Her golden eyes studied Izuku with an intensity that made him feel exposed. Then those eyes widened. "Your mind," she whispered. "I've never, the pain. The betrayal. The love despite everything." Her voice cracked. "How do you carry all of that?" She was reading him. Psychically. Izuku should have felt violated, but instead he felt, understood. Maybe for the first time. "Practice," he said. "Lots of practice." Tears were streaming down Xylene's face now. "I was drawn here. Across dimensions. I felt something calling, such warmth, such light, even buried under all that hurt." The Chaquetrix pulsed. Izuku felt the bond beginning to form, responding to the emotional connection already building. "I'm Izuku," he said, offering his hand. "I think my alien watch wants us to be friends." Xylene laughed through her tears. It was a lovely sound, melodic, genuine. "I am Xylene of Uxor. And yes, I believe it does." She took his hand. The Shaketrix flared green. Second bond initiated. They couldn't go back to the junkyard, the commission would track them there eventually. But Xylene offered a solution. "I captured several of those agents psychically before you arrived," she explained as they moved through back alleys. "I saw their memories. There's an abandoned facility outside the city, a former Commission Black site that was decommissioned last year. They don't use it anymore, and the records have been purged. It would make a secure base." "You can read memories?" Izuku asked. "I can do much more than that. Uxorites are among the most powerful psychic species in the galaxy. Telekinesis, telepathy, empathic manipulation, memory access." She smiled slightly. "We're quite formidable when we're not exhausted and injured." "She's not lying," Ian added. "I've seen Uxorites tear apart battleships with their minds." "I wouldn't go that far," Xylene said modestly. "A small cruiser, perhaps." The facility was exactly as described, an abandoned building in an industrial district outside Muzutafu's main urban area. It had been gutted of most equipment but retained basic infrastructure, running water, electricity connections, reinforced walls. Izuku and his 2 partners spent the evening making it habitable. He cleaned while Ian secured the perimeter and Xylene scanned for surveillance devices. "So," Xylene said as they worked, "the Chaquetrix. Ian has explained the basics. Bonds, tears, eventual apocalyptic enemy." "Yeah." "Did she explain why the device was created?" "To make a new species powerful enough to fight threats like Maltruant." "Yes, but do you understand what that means?" Xylene moved closer, her golden eyes warm. "The Chaquetrix isn't just a weapon, Izuku. It's a seed. It's designed to create a family, a species, built on genuine connection and love. Every partner it calls, every bond it forms, is a step towards something beautiful." "She's getting sentimental," Ian muttered from across the room. "I am an empath. Sentiment is literally my specialty." Xylene didn't take her eyes off Izuku. "The point is, the partners who bond with you aren't conscripts or servants. We're choosing this. We feel the Chaquetrix's call, and we choose to answer because we sense something in you worth fighting beside. What did you sense? Xylene was quiet for a moment. Pain. So much pain. But underneath it, hope. Stubborn, irrational, indestructible hope. You've been broken, but you haven't given up. You've been betrayed, but you haven't stopped caring. She reached out and touched his face gently. That's rare, Izuku. Rarer than you know. He didn't know how to respond. Nobody had talked to him like this ever, really. I sensed it too, Ian said quietly, surprising both of them. In the crater. When you insisted on burying Talia. When you got up after the drone aged your arm. She crossed her arms, looking uncomfortable with the emotion. The Shaketrix chose well. That's all I'm saying. The three of them stood in the abandoned facility, surrounded by dust and silence, and for the first time in weeks, Izuku didn't feel alone. So what now? He asked. Now we rest, Xylene said. Tomorrow we strengthen our bonds, develop our abilities, and prepare for what's coming. And what's coming? Ian and Xylene exchanged glances. Everything, Ian said. That night, Izuku couldn't sleep. Too much had happened. His mind raced through everything, the Chaquetrix, the bonds, Maltruant, the commission, the betrayal that had started it all. He ended up on the facility's roof, staring at the city lights in the distance. Muzutafu looked peaceful from here. Normal. Like the world hadn't just become infinitely more complicated. Footsteps behind him. Ian. You should be sleeping, she said. Could say the same to you. She sat down beside him, her armor somehow silent despite its obvious weight. I don't sleep much. Cronians experience time differently, sleep feels like wasting potential centuries. That sounds exhausting. It is. She was quiet for a moment. What keeps you awake? Everything. Nothing. Just. He struggled for words. 3 weeks ago I had a future. I was going to be a hero. I had friends, a mentor, a purpose. Then it all got taken away, and I spent 3 weeks in a junkyard wondering why I bothered staying alive. He looked at the Shaketrix. Now I have this. Powers I don't understand, partners I just met, an enemy I can't imagine defeating. It's a lot. It is. How do you handle it? You've been doing this for centuries. Ian actually laughed, a short, harsh sound. Who says I handle it? I've spent most of my existence running from one fight to the next, losing everyone I cared about, watching timelines burn. She looked at him directly. You want to know the secret? There isn't one. You just keep going. Every day you wake up and choose to face it. That's all. That's not very inspiring. Inspiration is overrated. Persistence is what matters. They sat in silence for a while. The city lights flickered. Somewhere distant, a siren wailed. The betrayal, Ian said eventually. Tell me about it. Izuku didn't want to. But somehow, sitting here with her, the words came anyway. He told her about Bakugo. About growing up quirkless, being told he was worthless, finding All Might and finally having hope. About UA, his classmates, the friendships he'd built. About the evidence that appeared from nowhere, the accusation, the trial that wasn't a trial. About All Might taking back One for All. About his mother disappearing. About the junkyard. Ian listened without interrupting. When he finished, her expression was unreadable. Maltruant, she said finally. What? The evidence. The timing. The way everything aligned perfectly to isolate you and destroy your spirit. She shook her head. Temporal manipulation. Someone went back and planted that evidence, constructed a narrative, ensured your downfall. But why? Because the Chaquetrix was coming. Because it was going to bond with someone on this world. Maltruant wanted that someone to be either destroyed or alone when it happened, either unable to bond or forced to bond with no support system to threaten him. Izuku felt something cold settle in his chest. So Bakugo, All Might, my classmates, they were manipulated. Manipulated, yes. But they still chose their actions. A nudge isn't a compulsion. Ian's voice hardened. They could have questioned the evidence. Could have investigated deeper. Could have trusted the person they knew instead of convenient proof that appeared from nowhere. They chose not to. Yeah. Izuku's voice was barely a whisper. Yeah, they did. Does knowing it was manipulation change anything for you? He thought about it. Really thought about it. No, he said finally. It explains things. But it doesn't excuse them. Ian nodded. Good. Hold on to that. The anger will be useful. She stood and offered him her hand. He took it, and she pulled him to his feet with surprising gentleness. Tomorrow we train. The next day we grow stronger. And eventually, we make the people who hurt you pay. Her eyes shifted through ages, settling on something fierce and ancient. That's what I can offer you, Izuku Midoriya. Vengeance and purpose and power. And something else, if you're willing. What? She stepped closer. In the moonlight, she looked almost human. I haven't trusted anyone in a very long time. The last people I trusted are dead. But something about you. She shook her head. The Chaquetrix doesn't force emotions. It connects us, but what we feel is real. And I feel something. Something I haven't felt in centuries. She kissed him. It wasn't passionate, not yet. It was almost experimental, like she was testing whether she remembered how. Her lips were cool against his, and he tasted something like ozone and starlight. When she pulled back, her eyes were unreadable. Don't make me regret that. I'll do my best. The Shaketrix pulsed warmly. Izuku felt the bond with Ian deepen, not quite tier 2, but closer. Progress. Get some sleep, Ian said, stepping back. Tomorrow will be hard. She walked away, leaving him on the roof with the taste of her kiss still on his lips. Izuku stayed for a few more minutes, staring at the city. Then he went inside, found his makeshift bed, and slept without nightmares for the first time in 3 weeks. Morning brought new challenges. The Chaquetrix woke him with a pulse of urgency, new signals, getting closer. Multiple bonds, converging on his location. More partners, he asked Ian over a breakfast of scavenged canned food. The Chaquetrix's activation sent ripples through dimensional barriers. Those ripples are carrying compatible beings to you. She didn't look particularly happy about it. It seems we'll have company soon. Xylene emerged from another room, where she'd been meditating to recover from her injuries. I sense them too. At least 2 approaching today, perhaps more. Do we know who they are? The Chaquetrix provide species information but not individual identities. Xylene's golden eyes unfocused briefly. One is Tetramand, extremely powerful physically. 4 arms, incredible strength. The other is. She frowned. Harder to read. Cold. Ethereal. Necrophrygian, Ian supplied. Ice-based species with intangibility. Potentially dangerous if hostile. They won't be hostile, Izuku said with certainty he couldn't explain. Both women looked at him. The bond, he clarified. I can feel it. They're coming to me, not against me. They want this. Interesting. Ian studied him. Your connection to the Chaquetrix is stronger than I expected. Most hosts can't sense incoming partners until they're practically on top of them. Before they could discuss further, an explosion rocked the building. Dust rained from the ceiling. Izuku grabbed his pipe, he really needed better weapons, and ran toward the sound. The explosion hadn't been in their facility. It had been nearby, a construction site a few blocks away, visible through a hole that had appeared in the outer wall. Through the hole, Izuku could see 4 red arms waving in the air as their owner fought a crane that had apparently decided to attack her. "She's fighting construction equipment," Ian observed. "She thinks they're hostile machinery," Xylene added. "Her homeworld has combat robots that use similar designs." Izuku sighed and started running toward the chaos. The Tetramand was massive, 7 feet tall, 4 heavily muscled arms, red skin, and eyes full of battle joy as she ripped the crane's arm off and threw it across the site. She was wearing what looked like combat armor, but it was damaged, probably from dimensional transit. "Machine creatures," she bellowed, picking up a concrete mixer. "I will crush you all. Those aren't machines," Izuku shouted as he approached. "They're tools. Construction equipment." The Tetramand paused mid-throw, turning to look at him. Her 4 eyes narrowed. Then they widened. "The host. I felt you." She dropped the concrete mixer, directly onto a bulldozer, crushing it, and strode toward him. "Finally. My soul has been screaming for battle bond for days now. Hi. I'm Izuku. Please stop destroying the construction site. This is not combat." She looked around at the wreckage she'd caused. "But the yellow machines moved toward me. They're working. Building things. It's what they do." The Tetramand didn't seem embarrassed exactly, but she did lower her extra arms. "Lyra of the Tetramand warrior clan. The Chaquetrix's call brought me here." She grinned, showing sharp teeth. "I hear you need strong fighters." "We need partners," Izuku corrected. "Fighters who are also partners. Even better. Partners who can fight together." Lyra grabbed his hand, his whole hand disappeared in her grip, and shook vigorously. "Let us bond immediately. I wish to test my new battle brother." "Battle brother? What else would you be?" "The Shaketrix bonds warriors. You are bonded. Therefore, warrior. Therefore, brother." She squinted at him. "You are male, yes. Humans confuse me." "Yes, I'm male." "Good. Then battle brother. Or battlemate, if the bond deepens that far." She laughed loudly. "My clan would be so jealous. A cross-dimensional bond with a creature from a warrior world." "I'm not really, he is absolutely a warrior," Ian interrupted, arriving with Xylene. "He just doesn't know it yet." Lyra studied Ian, then Xylene. "More bond sisters. Excellent. We will form the greatest battle clan this dimension has ever seen." She released Izuku's hand and cracked all 4 sets of knuckles. "Now. The host mentioned testing. I wish to see what my new battle brother is capable of." "You want to fight me?" "I want to spar with you." "There is a difference." Lyra's grin sharpened. "If I wanted to fight, you would already be unconscious." Izuku looked at Ian and Xylene. Both shrugged. "Sure," he said. "Let's spar." Lyra hit hard. That was the immediate lesson. Even pulling her punches, and she was clearly pulling her punches, each impact felt like getting hit by a car. Izuku flew backward, slammed into a concrete pillar, and slid to the ground. Again. Lyra called cheerfully. "You survived. This is good." He got up. Everything hurt. But the Chaquetrix was already flooding him with healing energy, and more importantly, his analytical mind was cataloging her movements. 4 arms meant 4 potential attack vectors. She favored her upper right, probably her dominant hand. Her lower arms were stronger but slower. Her footwork was aggressive, always advancing, leaving her rear guard weak. He charged again. This time, when she swung with her upper right, he was ready. He ducked under it, using Cronian perception to track the follow-up from her lower left, rolling away from that too. For half a second, he was inside her guard. He couldn't hurt her with physical force, she was too tough. But Xylene's Tier 1 bond had given him something else, diluted telekinesis. He thrust his palm toward her center mass and pushed. The telekinetic shove wouldn't have moved a parked car. But it hit Lyra's center of gravity perfectly, right as she was shifting her weight forward. She stumbled, just a step, but it was the first time he'd moved her at all. Lyra's eyes lit up with delight. Yes. You learn. You adapt. This is what I wanted. She came at him harder. He dodged, deflected, analyzed. His body was battered but his mind was singing, this was what he was built for. Not raw power, but understanding. Pattern recognition. Exploiting weaknesses. Over the next 2 hours, he got knocked down 37 times. But each time, he got up knowing something new. By the end, he could survive almost 30 seconds against her direct assault, dodging and redirecting rather than trying to match her strength. Acceptable, Lyra declared, breathing hard. She was sweating. Izuku counted that as a victory. You fight like prey that has learned to think like a predator. Unusual strategy for a bonded partner. Is that good? It is different. Different is interesting. She slapped his shoulder, nearly dislocating it. I will enjoy fighting beside you, battle brother. The Chaquetrix pulsed. Third bond initiated. The Necrophrygian arrived that evening, without fanfare or explosions. Izuku was on watch. They'd established a rotation, when he noticed he wasn't alone on the roof. She stood at the edge, looking out at the city. She hadn't been there a moment ago, but now she was, as if she'd always existed in that spot and reality had just gotten around to acknowledging her. She was beautiful in a way that made his heart ache. Pale blue-white skin, large eyes the color of deep ice, wrapped in what looked like a cloak made of frozen moth wings. She seemed to flicker at the edges, not quite solid, as if she existed partially in another state of matter. Hello, Izuku said carefully. She turned to look at him. Her expression was unreadable, not cold exactly, but distant. Remote. Like she was observing him from very far away despite standing right there. You are the host. Izuku. Yeah. I am Saren. The Shaketrix called. I answered. She didn't move closer. I have been watching you. Learning. How long have you been watching? Since you fought the Tetramand. You are fragile but determined. An unusual combination. Thanks. I think. Silence stretched between them. Saren didn't seem uncomfortable with it, probably didn't experience discomfort the way humans did. But something in her posture suggested she was waiting. Izuku sat down at the roof's edge, dangling his feet over the side. After a moment, she sat beside him. Or rather, she folded herself into a sitting position, her body moved differently than anything organic should. Why did you answer the call? He asked. I do not know. She was staring at the city lights. Necrophrygians are solitary. We do not bond easily. We do not need others. Her wings rustled faintly. But the Chaquetrix's call felt warm. Warm. I would have expected cold, for your species. That is why it was strange. She finally looked at him directly. I have been alive for many cycles. I have felt many things. But warmth. Something shifted in her expression, the faintest hint of vulnerability beneath the ice. I have never felt warm before. And then your signal reached me, and I felt it. Real warmth. Izuku didn't know what to say to that. So he did what came naturally, he moved slightly closer, letting his shoulder brush against her wing. She flinched. Then, slowly, she leaned into the contact. They sat there together as the city lights flickered below. No words. No explanation necessary. Just presence. The Chaquetrix pulsed. Fourth bond initiated. The next morning, Izuku's life exploded again. He was training with Lyra, actually improving now, lasting over a minute against her direct assault, when Xylene's mental voice slammed into his consciousness. Izuku. Heroes incoming. Commission authorization. He broke away from Lyra and sprinted for the facility's entrance. Ian was already there, her eyes shifting through combat states. Saren phased through a wall to join them. Xylene emerged from the surveillance room she'd set up. 3 pros, Xylene reported. Midnight, Kamui Woods, Edge Shot. Commission tactical team in support. 8 agents. They found us already. Lyra sounded more excited than worried. Excellent. Combat. They tracked the dimensional disturbances, Ian said grimly. Sloppy of us. Izuku forced himself to think. 3 pro heroes. 8 agents. His team was powerful but untested as a unit. And more importantly, Midnight and Kamui Woods were at my expulsion, he said quietly. They didn't fight for me. They were following orders, Xylene said gently. I know. His voice was flat. That's the point. The facility's front door crashed open. Commission agents streamed in, followed by the 3 heroes. Midnight stepped forward, hands raised in a peaceful gesture. Midoriya. We're not here to fight. The commission wants to negotiate. Negotiate. Izuku's laugh had no humor in it. That's what we're calling kidnapping now. The alien technology you've acquired is a matter of national security. You framed me. You destroyed my life. You made my mother disappear. And now you want to negotiate? Midnight's composure cracked slightly. I didn't, that wasn't, you stood there when All Might ripped my quirk away. You watched. You said nothing. The evidence was fabricated. The word tore out of him with more force than he'd intended. Every piece of it was fabricated. Temporal manipulation. Planted data. And nobody bothered to question it because it was easier to believe I was a villain than to investigate. Silence fell over the room. Behind Midnight, Kamui Woods shifted uncomfortably. Even Edge Shot's usual stillness seemed affected. That's. Midnight started. A serious accusation, a commission agent cut in, stepping forward. One that won't change the situation. Midoriya, you're carrying an alien weapon of unknown origin and capability. The commission requires, the agent raised his weapon. Xylene caught him with telekinesis before he could fire. But the action broke whatever tenuous peace had existed. Everything happened at once. Midnight deployed her quirk, clouds of soporific mist filling the air. Kamui Woods extended his wooden limbs to restrain. Edge Shot folded himself thin, moving to flank. The other agents opened fire with containment weapons. And Izuku's team responded. Ian moved first, aging Midnight's mist before it could spread, watching it transform from gas to solid particles that clattered harmlessly to the floor. Lyra charged the agents head-on, swatting aside containment shots like mosquitoes and grabbing 2 men by their tactical vests, throwing them into their teammates. Saren phased through Kamui Woods' bindings like they didn't exist, then froze his extending limbs solid with a touch. The wooden appendages shattered when he tried to move them, and he cried out in surprise and pain. Xylene handled the remaining agents with brutal efficiency, her telekinesis was fully recovered now, and she simply lifted them off their feet and held them suspended, unable to do anything but flail. That left Edge Shot facing Izuku directly. The ninja hero was fast. Faster than anything Izuku had faced. He folded himself paper-thin and shot forward, aiming to disable with a single precise strike. Izuku used everything he had. Cronian perception stretched the moment, letting him see Edge Shot's trajectory. Uxorite telekinesis pushed at the hero's path, disrupting his aim by millimeters. And when Edge shot adjusted, Izuku was already moving, not where the hero expected, but into his blind spot. The pipe he'd been carrying caught Edge shot across the back of the skull. Not hard enough to kill, Izuku wasn't a killer, but hard enough to knock even a pro hero unconscious. Edge shot collapsed. The fight was over. Izuku stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard, surrounded by unconscious agents and restrained heroes. His team flanked him, Ian on his right, Xylene on his left, Lyra behind him, Saren hovering above. Midnight was still conscious, held in place by Lyra's lower arms. Her eyes were wide with something that might have been fear, or might have been realization. "You're stronger than before," she whispered. "The device changed you. The device showed me what I could be." Izuku stepped closer, looking down at the woman who'd watched his destruction without lifting a finger. "You had a chance to question it. All of you did. Evidence appears from nowhere, perfectly damning, and nobody thinks to verify independently. Nobody wonders why a kid who spent a year risking his life for his classmates would suddenly betray them. We trusted the system was designed to destroy me." He crouched down to her eye level. "I don't blame you for the system, Midnight. I blame you for not thinking for yourself. For being a hero who follows orders instead of doing what's right." He stood back up. "Let her go, Lyra. Let all of them go. But Battle Brother, they're not our enemies. They're tools being used by our enemies. There's a difference." Lyra released Midnight reluctantly. Xylene lowered the suspended agents to the floor. The heroes and agents groggily began to recover. "Tell your commission master something for me," Izuku said as they gathered themselves. "The Chaquetrix can't be taken. It's bonded to me permanently. Coming after it is a waste of resources. But if they want to keep trying." He smiled without warmth. "I'm happy to keep teaching these lessons." The commission forces retreated. Midnight cast one last look over her shoulder, something complicated in her expression, but said nothing. When they were gone, Lyra punched Izuku's shoulder with an upper right arm. "That was magnificent. You didn't kill any of them, but you still dominated completely. My clan would compose songs about this." "Please don't compose songs. Too late. Already working on the chorus." Xylene approached, golden eyes warm. "You showed mercy. Even to those who hurt you. Killing them wouldn't have changed anything. And despite everything." Izuku looked at the direction the heroes had retreated. "Some of them might still choose differently next time. If they're alive to choose. You're better than they deserve," Ian said quietly. She was standing closer than usual. "But that's not an insult. It's an observation." Saren simply touched his arm with her cold fingers. "Warm," she murmured again. "You are still warm." Izuku looked at his team, 4 alien women who'd chosen to stand with him against the world that had rejected him. "We need to move," he said. "They know this location now. And we need a better base if we're going to keep fighting." "There's a facility on the coast," Xylene offered. "I pulled its location from the agent's memories. An island, abandoned but functional. It would be defensible. Then that's where we go." The team moved to gather their limited supplies. Izuku paused at the door, looking back at the ruined facility. 3 weeks ago, he'd been living in a junkyard, wondering why he bothered staying alive. Now he had power. He had partners. He had purpose. And somewhere out there, the people who destroyed him were going to learn exactly what that meant. Chapter 2, Bonfire. The island was perfect. 3 miles off the coast, accessible only by boat or flight, surrounded by rocky cliffs that made approach difficult from any direction. The facility itself had been a commissioned black site back in the day. Xylene pulled that from the captured agent's memories, used for enhanced interrogation, before someone with a conscience leaked its existence and forced a shutdown. Now it was theirs. Izuku stood on the facility's main observation deck, watching the sun rise over the ocean. Behind him, the sounds of construction echoed through the building. Lyra was helping with structural repairs, which mostly meant punching walls until they were the shape she wanted. "You're thinking too loud," Xylene said, materializing beside him. Her psychic presence had become familiar over the past week, a warm hum at the edge of his consciousness. "I can feel it from 3 rooms away." "Sorry." "Habit. Don't apologize. Just tell me what's wrong." Izuku turned to face her. The morning light caught her purple skin, making her look ethereal, otherworldly. Which she was, of course. But somehow that had stopped mattering. "The commission won't stop. That fight at the facility, that was a probe. They were testing our capabilities. Next time they'll send more firepower. We'll handle it." "Will we?" "Ian's powerful, but she can't fight forever. Lyra's strong but straightforward, a tactical team could outmaneuver her. Saren's abilities are incredible for infiltration, but she struggles with direct combat. And you, and me? You're our intelligence network, our communications, our early warning system. If something happens to you, we're blind." Xylene smiled softly. "You've been analyzing us like quirks. It's what I do. I know. It's one of the things I love about you." The word hung in the air between them. Love. Neither of them had said it before, not directly. The bonds were deepening. Izuku could feel it through the Chaquetrix, but naming the feelings out loud was different. "Xylene, you don't have to say it back. I'm an empath, Izuku. I know what you feel." She stepped closer, placing her hand over his heart. "I feel what you feel. The warmth. The terror. The hope despite everything." Her golden eyes softened. "I just wanted you to know that what's growing between us isn't one-sided." He covered her hand with his. Her skin was cool to the touch, but the contact sent warmth spreading through his chest. "I've never done this before," he admitted. "Any of this. Dating. Relationships. Fighting aliens. Building a team. Neither have I. Not like this." She laughed quietly. "I've had connections before. Brief things. Physical release without emotional depth. This is different." "Different how?" "Deeper. Realer. When I touch your mind, I feel home. That's never happened before." Before Izuku could respond, the Shaketrix pulsed urgently. New signal. Close. And chaotic. "We have incoming," he said, the moment broken. "Someone's approaching the island." "Hostile?" "Can't tell. But they're loud. The signal feels loud." Xylene's eyes unfocused briefly. "I sense them too. Highly charged energy. Electrical." She frowned. "And there's another signature behind them. Slower, but intense. Heat-based. 2 more partners. Possibly. Or threats." Izuku grabbed the communicator they'd rigged from salvaged parts. "Ian, Lyra, Saren, incoming signals. Meet at the eastern beach." The first arrival didn't land so much as crash. A streak of lightning arced across the morning sky and slammed into the beach, sending up a spray of sand and creating a crater of fused glass. In the crater stood a woman made of living electricity. She was humanoid but only barely. Her body shifted between solid form and pure energy, arcing with power that made Izuku's hair stand on end from 50 feet away. Her eyes were bright white, crackling with voltage, and when she grinned, sparks flew from her teeth. "What's up, new universe?" she shouted, throwing her arms wide. "Who wants to party?" Lyra was already charging. "Enemy. Wait." The Tetraman's fist connected with the electrical woman's face. Or tried to. The punch passed through her energy form, and Lyra found herself conducting several thousand volts through her body. She went rigid, smoke rising from her armor, then collapsed backward onto the sand. Oh crap, was that a friend? The electrical woman's form solidified slightly, genuine concern crossing her features. I didn't mean to zap her. She punched me first. Lyra attacked you, Izuku called out, approaching cautiously. That wasn't an official greeting. Oh good, because killing the first person I meet in a new dimension would be a really bad start. The woman floated down from her crater and landed in front of Izuku. Up close, she was beautiful in a wild way, all crackling energy and manic grin. I'm Volta. Conductoid species. The alien watch in my chest, she tapped her sternum, where Izuku could see a device similar to his Chaquetrix glowing beneath her energy skin, said you're the host and I should come hang. The Shaketrix gave you a message? More like a feeling. A really strong, go there, meet him, become best friends kind of vibe. She tilted her head. Is that not how it works? That's, approximately how it works, yes. Ian arrived, taking in the scene, Lyra groaning on the ground, Volta sparking cheerfully, Izuku looking bewildered. Another partner, I take it? I think so. Ooh, you're pretty. Volta zipped over to Ian faster than the eye could track. Time lady, right? I can feel the chronal energy. It tickles. Ian's expression suggested she'd never been called pretty quite like that before. I am Ian. Cronian. And you are far too energetic for this early in the morning. Early? It's always party time somewhere in the multiverse. Volta spun in a circle, leaving afterimages. So where's my room? Do I get a room? Can I have a room with lots of metal? I like metal. It's conductive. Saren phased up through the sand beside Izuku. She is, loud. That's one word for it. I can hear you, ghost lady. Volta called out. And yeah, I'm loud. Electrons don't have volume control. Before anyone could respond, the second arrival made herself known. The air temperature spiked. Izuku felt sweat break out across his skin as the beach itself began to heat up. Looking toward the ocean, he saw a column of fire descending from the sky, a meteorite made of living flame. It struck the water 100 yards offshore, sending up an explosion of steam that rolled across the beach like a scalding fog. When the steam cleared, a figure walked out of the surf. She was fire-given form. Her body burned constantly, flames licking across skin the color of heated bronze. Her eyes were white-hot, and her hair was a corona of dancing fire that shifted with her movements. Unlike Volta's chaotic energy, she radiated controlled power, a furnace that chose when to burn. The Chaquetrix called, she said, her voice crackling like a campfire. Iron kindle. Pyronite warrior. I seek the host. That's me, Izuku said, stepping forward despite the heat. Izuku Midoriya. Kindle studied him with those white-hot eyes. You are, small. And fragile. And currently sweating. The heat will do that. In my culture, we test potential bonds through fire. If you cannot withstand my presence, how can we fight together? I'm not going to fight you. Izuku kept walking toward her, even as the heat increased. The Chaquetrix pulsed, feeding him energy, helping his body adapt. If you wanted to hurt me, you'd have attacked already. You're testing me. I am. Then I'll pass your test by not playing it. He stopped 5 feet away from her, close enough to feel like he was standing in an oven. The bond isn't about surviving each other. It's about trusting each other. Kindle's flames flickered. Something shifted in her expression. No one has ever approached me willingly. Not without protective gear. Not without fear. I'm afraid, Izuku admitted. But fear isn't a good reason to back away from someone who might become family. The temperature dropped. Kindle's flames banked to a low burn, barely warm. She reached out and touched his cheek with fingers that should have scorched but instead felt merely heated. You are strange, host. I expected a warrior. I find something else. Is that bad? I do not know yet. But she didn't remove her hand. The Chaquetrix bonds us. I feel it. The connection beginning to form. The device on his arm pulsed twice. Fifth and sixth bonds initiated, nearly simultaneously. Behind him, Volta whooped. Party's getting bigger. I love it. This is gonna be great. 2 days later, the team had achieved something approaching functionality. Volta had claimed the facility's generator room, rewiring the entire electrical grid to run more efficiently and, not coincidentally, to feed her when she needed a recharge. Her energy was endless, she talked constantly, moved constantly, and seemed to view stillness as a personal enemy. Kindle had taken over an abandoned section of the facility and converted it into what she called a forge. Pyronites apparently had an ancestral connection to metalwork, and she'd begun creating weapons and tools using nothing but her bare hands and her flames. The combat knife she'd made for Izuku was perfect, balanced, sharp, and warm to the touch without burning. The team dynamics were evolving. Ian remained the most experienced combatant, running training sessions that pushed everyone to their limits. Xylene served as the emotional center, her empathic abilities helping smooth over conflicts before they escalated. Lyra provided raw combat power and, surprisingly, excellent tactical insights. Tetramans weren't stupid, just direct. Saren remained quiet, observing more than participating, but her intelligence operations were invaluable. And Izuku found himself becoming something he'd never expected, a leader. Not because he demanded it. Not because he was the strongest. But because he was the one they all turned to when decisions needed to be made. You have a gift for it, Xylene told him one evening as they watched the sunset from the observation deck. Leadership, I mean. You see people's strengths and how to combine them. You give direction without demanding obedience. I just do what seems right. That's what makes it a gift. Most leaders overthink it. You trust your instincts. My instincts have been wrong before. A lot. No. She shook her head firmly. Your instincts were right. You trusted people who betrayed you, that wasn't your failure. It was theirs. Before he could respond, the Chaquetrix pulsed with something new. Not a partner signal this time. Something darker. Incoming communication, Izuku said, frowning at the device. That's not supposed to be possible, is it? The Chaquetrix can receive signals, but only from specific frequencies. Ian had arrived, her expression troubled. Let me see. She examined the device, her eyes shifting through temporal states. Then she went very still. This signal has temporal markers. It's not from this dimension or time period. Her voice was flat, dangerous. It's from him. Maltruant? Play the message. Izuku focused on the Chaquetrix, mentally accepting the incoming transmission. A voice emerged, not from the device exactly, but from everywhere, as if reality itself was speaking. Little host. The voice was ancient and mechanical, filled with the sound of ticking clocks and grinding gears. Little bonded thing. You've been busy. Building your army. Training your powers. Preparing for war. You wanted isolated, Izuku said out loud, knowing somehow that the message was two-way. You wanted broken. You got neither. I got exactly what I planned. Maltruant's laugh echoed through the room. The evidence I planted worked perfectly. Your world betrayed you. Your friends abandoned you. Your mentor ripped the power from your body. Everything went according to design. Kindle's flames roared higher. Lyra's fists clenched. Even Saren seemed to solidify with cold rage. The plan was to destroy you completely, the voice continued. But you survived. And now the Chaquetrix has bonded with a host who has nothing left to lose, the most dangerous kind. Another laugh. I admit, I underestimated your resilience. It won't happen again. What do you want, maltruant? Want? I want the Chaquetrix unmade. Its core contains a fragment of the chronosapien time stream, power that belongs to us, not to organic filth playing at godhood. The voice sharpened. But I'm patient. I've been patient for eons. I can wait until you're strong enough to make your destruction meaningful. You're telling me you're going to wait. I'm telling you I'm watching. Every bond you form. Every power you develop. Every enemy you defeat. I'm taking notes. The voice turned contemplative. Did you know your betrayers are beginning to doubt? The evidence I planted was perfect, but humans are irritatingly persistent about truth. Some of them are starting to question. Izuku's heart stuttered. What? Oh yes. The explosive one, Bakugo. He's been having nightmares. The half-and-half boy, Todoroki, has been asking uncomfortable questions. Even your beloved mentor is showing signs of regret. Maltruant's voice dripped with amusement. Shall I tell you what happens in the timelines where they discover the truth? It's quite entertaining. Don't, in 37% of those timelines, they try to make amends. You reject them, and they spiral into self-destruction. In 42%, you accept their apologies, and I destroy everything you've rebuilt out of spite. In the remaining 21%. The voice went cold. You kill them yourself. That's not going to happen. No. We'll see. The future isn't written, little host. But I've read a lot of drafts. The communication cut off. The room fell silent. He was inside the compound, Saren said quietly. Not physically. But he had a presence here. I felt it. Temporal projection, Ian confirmed. He can manifest his awareness across dimensions without being physically present. It's how chronosapiens spy. She looked at Izuku. Everything he said was designed to destabilize you. To make you doubt yourself and your allies. It's working. Don't let it. Xylene grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to look at her. He wants you off balance. Afraid. Making decisions from fear instead of clarity. He said people are starting to doubt. That Bakugo, do you care what Bakugo thinks? The question hit him like a punch. Did he? After everything? I don't know, he admitted. I thought I didn't. But what? But if Maltruant manipulated all of them, if even Bakugo was just a tool, then maybe. He couldn't finish the sentence. Maybe you can forgive them. Ian's voice was sharp. They chose their actions. Manipulation doesn't erase agency. But it changes context. Does it change results? You still lost everything. You still suffered. Their guilt or innocence doesn't unmake your pain. I know that. Izuku pulled away from both of them. I'm not saying I forgive anyone. I'm saying the situation is more complicated than I thought. War is always complicated, Lyra said. She'd been silent, which was unusual for her. On Koros, we have a saying, the enemy of my enemy is still my enemy, but perhaps a useful one. You're suggesting we use Bakugo? I'm suggesting we use the doubt Maltruant revealed. If your former allies are questioning the narrative, that weakens the Commission's position. Weakening the Commission helps us. It was cold logic. Brutal, even. But not wrong. She has a point, Volta chimed in, sparking nervously. I mean, I don't know these people, but enemies fighting each other is always good for us, right? Izuku looked around at his team. 6 women from across dimensions, bonded to him through alien technology, all waiting to see what he'd decide. We don't make contact yet, he said finally. But we watch. We gather intelligence. If an opportunity presents itself. He let the sentence hang. And maltruant? Ian asked. He's coming eventually. He basically admitted it. So we prepare. Get stronger. Form more bonds. Build something he can't break. Kindle's flames flared bright. And when he comes. Izuku's voice was harder than he'd ever heard it. We make him regret it. The next week was intense. Izuku threw himself into training with renewed focus. His Tier 1 bonds with all 6 partners gave him access to diluted versions of their abilities: Chronian time perception, Uxorite telekinesis, Tetraman strength, Necrophrygian cold, Conductoid electrical absorption, Pyronite heat resistance. Combining them was the challenge. You're thinking too much, Ian criticized during one session. The abilities should flow together. You're trying to consciously switch between them. How else am I supposed to use them? Feel the bond. Trust the connection. The Chaquetrix responds to emotional states, not intellectual commands. Easy for her to say. She'd been manipulating time for millennia. He'd had these powers for 2 weeks. But he tried. He focused on the warmth of his connections, the respect he had for Ian's experience, the trust he shared with Xylene, the competitive camaraderie with Lyra, the quiet understanding with Saren, the chaotic friendship with Volta, the mutual recognition with Kindle. And slowly, something shifted. The abilities stopped being separate tools and started becoming aspects of himself. When he moved, time bent around him. When he pushed, telekinetic force answered. When he struck, Tetraman strength flooded his muscles. Better, Ian admitted grudgingly after he finally managed to combine 3 abilities simultaneously: slowing time, enhancing his strength, and channeling heat resistance to survive a fireball from Kindle. Much better. The bonds were deepening too. Not just the power connections, but the personal ones. He spent a night talking with Lyra about Tetraman culture, their clan structures, their warrior traditions, their surprisingly complex poetry about battle and honor. She wasn't stupid at all, she just valued action over words. He meditated with Saren in the cold room she'd created, literally meditating, because Necrophrygians processed emotions differently and she needed silence to understand them. What she shared wasn't words but impressions, loneliness so vast it could swallow galaxies, and then warmth breaking through like a distant sun. He sparred with Volta until they both collapsed laughing, her electrical energy making his hair stand on end permanently and his stubbornness making her actually work for her victories. He watched Kindle forge, learning that Pyronites expressed affection through creation. Every weapon she made him was essentially a love letter in metal. And with Xylene and Ian, the connections grew deeper in other ways. It happened naturally. No dramatic declarations, no awkward negotiations. Just closeness that kept intensifying until physical intimacy became inevitable. With Xylene, it started with a psychic link that grew too intimate to be anything but prelude. She felt what he felt, he learned to feel what she felt. When they finally came together, it was like completing a circuit that had been waiting to close. The bond jumped to Tier 2 immediately. Izuku felt her psychic abilities integrate more fully. He could read surface thoughts now, sense emotions in everyone around him, project his own feelings with precision. With Ian, it started with an argument. "You're being reckless," she snapped after he nearly got himself killed during a training exercise, pushing too hard too fast. "If you die, we're all scattered back to the void." "I'm not trying to die. I'm trying to be strong enough to protect everyone." "By getting yourself killed?" "That's not protection, it's martyrdom." "Then what would you have me do? Hide? Wait? Let Maltruant come when he's ready and just hope we're strong enough?" "I would have you live." Her voice cracked, actually cracked, showing emotion she'd been hiding for weeks. "I have lost everything, Izuku. My world. My people. Everything I knew. And now I have this bond, these partners, you, and you seem determined to throw yourself into oblivion at the first opportunity." "Ian, I do not care about winning. I care about surviving. About keeping something for once instead of watching it burn. She was crying. Ancient, immortal Ian was crying, tears streaming down her face as centuries of loss finally broke through her defenses. Izuku didn't think. He just moved, wrapping his arms around her, pulling her close. She resisted for a moment, then collapsed against him, sobbing in a way that suggested she hadn't cried since before the fall of her timeline. They stayed like that for a long time. And when the crying finally stopped, what replaced it was something else entirely. Their bond jumped to tier 2 as well. Izuku felt time itself respond to his commands more readily, not just perception but actual manipulation of local temporal flow. Well, Ian said afterward, sprawled across his bed with an expression he'd never seen on her face, peaceful, almost content. That was unexpected. Bad unexpected? No. She traced a finger down his chest. Merely unexpected. I haven't. She paused, searching for words. I haven't allowed myself to feel that way in a very long time. Neither have I. He laughed softly. Obviously. I was a virgin until, what, a week ago. And now you're not. She smiled in a way that was almost playful. You learn quickly. I have good teachers. The moment was interrupted by the Chaquetrix pulsing urgently. What now? Ian groaned. Izuku focused on the signal. His eyes widened. Hostiles incoming. But not just any hostiles. He sat up, reaching for his clothes. It's them. Class 1A. They gathered on the eastern beach as a boat approached, a commissioned transport modified for stealth operations. Xylene had sensed their approach 20 minutes out, giving the team time to prepare. 6 individuals on board, Xylene reported. The explosive one, Bakugo. The ice and fire one, Todoroki. The engine legs, Ida. The creation quirk, Yaoyorozu. The dark one, Tokoyami. And the hardening one, Kirishima. The same group from the original expulsion hearing, Ian noted. Minus a few. Minus the ones who won't question orders, Izuku said quietly. These are the ones who might actually listen. Should we let them land? Lyra asked, all 4 hands twitching toward her weapon. I could sink their boat before they reach shore. No. Let them come. Izuku's voice was steady despite his racing heart. It's time to have this conversation. The boat reached the beach. Commission agents stayed aboard, only the 6 students disembarked. They were in hero costumes but carried themselves differently than they had during the facility fight. Less certain. More hesitant. Bakugo led them, because of course he did. Even now, uncertain and probably sleep-deprived judging by the bags under his eyes, he walked like he owned every piece of ground beneath his feet. Deku, he started. Don't call me that. Bakugo flinched. Actually flinched. Midoriya. Better. Why are you here? To talk. Bakugo's jaw clenched. The evidence. We've been looking at it. Really looking. And timestamps don't match. IP traces lead back to commission servers. The metadata has anomalies that suggest post-creation editing. Todoroki stepped forward, his mismatched eyes troubled. Someone fabricated that evidence, Midoriya. The question is who and why. I know who. I know why. The question is what you're going to do about it. The 6 former classmates exchanged glances. Yaoyorozu spoke next, we're here against orders. The commission wanted us to retrieve you and the device. We refused. Then they'll label you as traitors too. Maybe. She didn't seem happy about it. But we couldn't, I couldn't, keep following orders when those orders were built on lies. Kirishima stepped forward, hands raised peacefully. Midoriya, man, I know we messed up. Really messed up. I keep thinking about that day in the principal's office, how you looked when nobody defended you, and I can't," his voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. That's not manly. That's not anything I want to be." "Apologies are words," Izuku said flatly. "What are you actually offering?" "Help." Ida spoke formally, as always, but there was genuine feeling beneath the stiffness. "We cannot undo what was done. But we can stand against the ones who orchestrated it." "The commission," Tokoyami added. "Dark Shadow and I have been gathering intelligence. The corruption runs deep. Someone outside the organization is influencing them, we don't know who, but the pattern suggests external manipulation." "I know who." Izuku glanced at Ian. "Maltruant. A chronosapien, a being made of living time. He's been manipulating events across dimensions to isolate the Chaquetrix's potential hosts. Including you," Todoroki said. "He engineered your betrayal." "Yes." Silence fell over the beach. Bakugo was staring at the sand, fists clenched so tight they were shaking. "All this time," he said, almost too quiet to hear. "All this time I convinced myself, that I was the villain because that was easier than admitting you destroyed an innocent person's life." Bakugo looked up. His eyes were wet. "Yeah," he admitted. "Yeah, that's exactly what I did." Izuku had imagined this moment. During those weeks in the junkyard, he'd fantasized about Bakugo breaking down, admitting fault, begging for forgiveness. He'd expected it would feel satisfying. It didn't. It just felt sad. "I'm not going to forgive you," Izuku said. "Not today. Maybe not ever. What you did, what all of you did, broke something in me that I don't think can be fixed." The 6 students didn't argue. They just listened. "But..." Izuku took a breath. "Maltruant is coming. And when he does, he won't distinguish between his enemies and his puppets. You'll all be targets. Everyone on this planet will be targets." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we have a common enemy now. And I'm pragmatic enough to accept useful allies." He met each of their eyes in turn. "You want to help? Then help. Prove you've changed through actions, not words. But understand, the moment I think any of you are compromising my team's safety, you're done." "Fair enough." Todoroki nodded sharply. "What do you need?" "Information. The Commission's current operations, their asset deployments, their contingency plans. Anything that tells us how they'll respond when Maltruant makes his move." "We can get that," Yaoyorozu said. "I still have access to several Commission databases through my family's connections." "Do it. Report back in 3 days." The 6 students turned to leave. But Bakugo hesitated. "Midoriya." "What?" "I know you don't believe me. But I am sorry. For all of it. Not just the evidence, for everything before that. Years of..." He stopped, swallowed hard. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know." He walked away before Izuku could respond. The boat departed. The island fell quiet. "You handled that well," Xylene said, moving to his side. "Better than I expected. I wanted to hurt them." Izuku's voice was distant. "When Bakugo cried, I wanted to make it worse. Rub salt in the wound. Make him feel even a fraction of what I felt. But you didn't. No." He turned to face his team, his real team, the ones who'd chosen him when no one else would. "Because causing them pain wouldn't help us. And helping us is all I care about." Ian smiled that rare smile of hers. "The boy is becoming a strategist. I approve. Don't get too excited. I still want to punch Bakugo in his face. That can be arranged." 3 days later, the information arrived. Yaoyorozu had outdone herself. full commission deployment schedules, asset registries, contingency protocols for various threat levels. Hawks had contributed additional intelligence through his secure channel, internal communications showing the commission scrambling to respond to the Midoriya situation. More importantly, she'd found evidence of external influence. Here, she said, pointing to a series of communications during a clandestine meeting at the island facility. Orders issued to commission leadership that don't match any internal authorization chains. They're coming from outside the organization, but the recipients don't seem to notice, they just accept them as legitimate. Temporal manipulation, Ian confirmed. Maltruant or his agents are issuing commands and editing memories to make them seem natural. Can we prove it? Izuku asked. Not in any way your world's legal systems would accept. Temporal evidence is self-erasing by nature. Then we need a different approach. Izuku studied the data, his analytical mind racing. If Maltruant's been manipulating the commission, we need to break his control. Force them to see what's happening independently. How? Todoroki asked. By giving them an enemy they can't ignore. One that overrides whatever orders Maltruant's been issuing. What kind of enemy? Before Izuku could answer, the facility's alarms blared. Xylene's eyes unfocused, then widened in horror. Nomu. Incoming. Not 1, 3. High-end models. All for one. Izuku was already moving toward the armory. Unknown. But they're heading straight for us. The timing was too perfect. Izuku knew it immediately. Maltruant, he said. He's using All for One's Nomu to test us. To probe our defenses. Then we give him a show, Lyra growled, slamming her 4 fists together. Let these creatures see what happens when they challenge a proper battle clan. They met the Nomu on the beach. The creatures were everything UA had warned about, twisted flesh, multiple quirks, regeneration that made them nearly unkillable. One had wings and launched air pressure attacks. Another was a tank of muscle with shock absorption. The third was small, fast, and crackled with electrical discharge. I'll handle the electric one. Volta shouted, launching herself at it. It's basically my cousin. Lyra, the tank. Saren, air support against the flyer. Izuku's orders came fast, instinctive. Ian, Xylene, with me. Kindle, keep them burning. If they regenerate, cauterize. The battle was chaos. The tank Nomu traded blows with Lyra, each impact creating shockwaves that shook the beach. She was stronger, but it had shock absorption, her hardest punches barely moved it. So she changed tactics, grabbing it with her lower arms and using her upper arms to tear instead of punch. The Nomu screamed as she ripped chunks from its torso. Saren phased through the flyer's attacks, her intangibility making its air pressure useless. But she struggled to hurt it in return, her ice powers froze it, but it broke free within seconds. She adapted, freezing not its body but its wings, sending it crashing to the ground where Tokoyami's dark shadow tore into it. Volta and the electric Nomu were a light show, lightning arcing between them as they absorbed and redirected each other's attacks. But Volta was smarter, draining not just its electrical output but the bioelectrical signals that controlled its body. The Nomu collapsed, paralyzed. The tank Nomu was healing from Lyra's damage. Kindle moved in, superheating its wounds until the flesh couldn't regenerate, cauterizing at a molecular level. It thrashed in agony. The flyer recovered from Saren's ice, but Bakugo was there, explosions driving it back toward Yaoyorozu, who'd created a cannon specifically designed to contain regenerating tissue. The net it fired wrapped around the Nomu and began constricting, crushing faster than it could heal. And Izuku faced the tank. Even damaged and burning, it was still coming. Shock absorption and regeneration made it nearly unkillable through conventional means. So Izuku didn't use conventional means. He reached deep into his bond with Ian, Tier 2 synchronization, and felt time respond to his will. Not just perception anymore. Actual manipulation. He created a localized time loop around the Nomu's head, trapping its brain in a 3-second cycle. It couldn't think, couldn't command its body, couldn't even process what was happening. While it was disoriented, Diamandra, no, wait, she wasn't here yet, Kindle superheated the air around it while Xylene telekinetically compressed that air into an impossibly dense sphere. The Nomu was crushed, burned, and temporarily frozen simultaneously. When the loop released, there was nothing left but ash. The beach fell silent. 3 high-end Nomu, defeated. Is everyone? Izuku started. The air cracked. Reality itself seemed to splinter. And through the crack stepped something that wasn't physically present, a projection, massive and terrible, made of gears and clock hands and compressed time. It had a face that was both mechanical and somehow alive, and when it spoke, everyone heard it inside their minds. Impressive. Maltruant's temporal avatar loomed over the battlefield. More impressive than I expected. You've grown, little host. Come face me yourself instead of sending puppets, Izuku challenged. In time. I wanted you to understand something first. The avatar's clockface eyes focused on the 6 UA students. Ah. The betrayers. How touching, they've come to make amends. Shall I tell them what happens in the timelines where you forgive them? Don't, in 47%, your renewed alliance leads to my victory. You become reliant on their support, and when I turn them against you again, which I always do, your collapse is total. The avatar made a sound like grinding gears. In 31%, you defeat me together, but the cost is so high that you wish you hadn't. And in the remaining 22%. I don't care about percentages. You should. Because in those timelines, you realize something important. The people who betrayed you once will always betray you again. Not because they're evil, but because they're human. Weak. Susceptible to manipulation. The avatar leaned closer. I've been doing this for eons, Izuku Midoriya. I know exactly which buttons to push. Your former friends will fail you again. It's simply a matter of when. Maybe, Izuku said. But that's my choice to make. Not yours. Choice. Maltruant laughed. Choice is an illusion I allow you to maintain because it makes you predictable. Everything you do, I've seen before. Every strategy you develop, I've countered in 1,000 timelines. Then why haven't you won yet? The avatar went still. Because the Chaquetrix is unpredictable, Ian answered from behind Izuku. Because the bonds it creates generate variables that even a chronosapien can't fully anticipate. That's why you're so afraid of it. I am not afraid, you're terrified. Ian stepped forward, her own temporal energy flaring. You've seen what happens when the Chaquetrix reaches full activation. A new species. A new power. Something that exists outside your control of the time stream. It cannot be allowed. It's already happening. Izuku raised his arm, the Shaketrix pulsing with power from 6 Tier 2 bonds. And every moment you waste threatening us from a distance, it happens more. Maltruant's avatar surged toward him, and shattered against a barrier that hadn't existed a second ago. A new figure stood between Izuku and where the avatar had been. A woman made of living diamond, 7 feet tall, her crystalline body refracting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The host will not be harmed, she said in a voice like singing crystal. I am Diamandra of Petropia. And I have arrived. The Chaquetrix pulsed. 7th bond initiated. Maltruant's avatar reformed behind her, flickering and unstable. Another partner. How tiresome. Leave, Diamandra commanded. Or I will make you leave. You cannot harm a temporal projection, Diamandra thrust her arm forward. Crystalline shards erupted from her palm, each one vibrating at a specific frequency. They passed through the avatar, and the avatar screamed. What, Petrosapian crystal resonates at frequencies that disrupt temporal manifestations. Diamondra's voice was calm, almost bored. My people developed this technique to combat chronosapian incursions. You are not the first-time creature I've faced. You won't be the last. The avatar dissolved, shrieking as it went. Maltruant's presence vanished from the island. Silence fell over the beach. Well, Volta said finally. That was metal as hell. Diamandra was everything Lyra had described Petrosapians as: proud, honor-bound, and utterly devastating in combat. She'd been a princess of her world before its destruction, a destruction she blamed, at least partially, on Maltruant's temporal manipulations. He weakened our defensive arrays, she explained as they gathered in the facility's main room. Made it appear that maintenance had been performed when it hadn't. When the invasion came, we were unprepared. Another timeline destroyed by his interference, Ian said grimly. Yes. I survived only because I was off-world during the attack. By the time I returned, Diamandra's crystalline face showed no expression, but her voice carried grief. There was nothing left to return to. And now you're here, Izuku said. Bonded to the Chaquetrix. The device called to me. Offered me something I thought I'd lost: purpose. A chance to strike back against the one who took everything from me. She met his eyes directly. I do not require friendship or affection, host. I require only the opportunity for vengeance. That's honest. I am always honest. It is the Petrosapian way. Then I'll be honest too, I don't know if I can give you vengeance. Maltruant is more powerful than anything I've faced. More powerful than anything we've faced together. Defeating him might not be possible. Yet you intend to try. Yes. Then that is enough. Diamandra inclined her head formally. I will stand with you, Izuku Midoriya. Until Maltruant falls or I do. The bond settled into place, different from the others, less warm, more like an alliance than a relationship. But no less real for that. 7 partners, Xylene observed. The Shaketrix is approaching its optimal configuration. How many more can it support? Todoroki asked. Theoretically, unlimited. Practically, the host can only maintain so many deep bonds simultaneously. 7 to 12 seems to be the functional range. Then we keep growing. Izuku looked around the room, at his team, at his reluctant former classmates, at the collected power they represented. Maltruant thinks he knows what's coming. Thinks he's seen every possibility. He has seen many, Ian cautioned. But not all. Izuku smiled grimly. Because we're going to do something he hasn't anticipated. We're going to stop reacting and start acting. Take the fight to him before he's ready. How? Bakugo asked. His voice was hesitant, unfamiliar with being anything other than the loudest person in the room. I don't know yet. But I'm going to figure it out. Izuku's eyes swept the room one more time. All of us are going to figure it out. Together. The Chaquetrix pulsed warmly. Somewhere in the distance, Izuku could feel more signals, more potential partners, more power, more hope. Maltruant was coming. The commission was crumbling. The world was changing around them. But for the first time since this all started, Izuku felt ready to change it back. Chapter 3, Convergence. The island had become a fortress. 3 weeks of constant work had transformed the abandoned commission facility into something formidable. Diamandra had reinforced every wall with crystalline lattices that could withstand military-grade bombardment. Kindle's forge ran day and night, producing weapons and armor tailored to each team member's abilities. Volta had upgraded the electrical grid until it hummed with enough power to light a small city. And the team had grown. Izuku stood on the observation deck, watching the sun set over the ocean, and counted the bonds in his mind. 12 now. 12 women from across dimensions who'd answered the Chaquetrix's call and chosen to stand with him. Ian, his first partner, currently running combat drills on the eastern beach. Her white hair caught the fading light as she demonstrated temporal strikes to the newer arrivals. Xylene, meditating in her quarters, her psychic presence a constant warmth at the edge of his consciousness. Their bond had deepened beyond Tier 2 in ways the Chaquetrix hadn't predicted. She could feel his emotions from anywhere on the island now. Lyra, sparring with Kirishima on the training grounds. The Tetramand had taken a liking to the hardening hero. They shared a similar philosophy about facing problems head-on. Saren, invisible somewhere in the facility's shadows. She'd become their primary reconnaissance asset, phasing through walls and floors to gather intelligence no one else could reach. Volta, probably rewiring something that didn't need rewiring. Her energy was boundless in every sense. Kindle, in her forge, creating something she wouldn't show him yet. A surprise, she'd said. Pyronites expressed love through craftsmanship. Diamandra, standing guard at the facility's main entrance. She took security personally. And 5 more who'd arrived over the past 3 weeks, Silva, a Florona, plant-based species with control over vegetation. She'd taken over the island's greenhouse and turned it into a food production center that could feed an army. Vex, a Kinoceleran, the fastest being Izuku had ever encountered. She made light look slow and talked even faster than she moved. Empiria, a Gimlenopathecus, electricity generation on a scale that made Volta jealous. The two of them together could probably power Japan. Krista, a Crystalcipian, similar to Diamandra but with energy absorption rather than pure crystalline manipulation. They'd become close friends despite their cultural differences. And Nyx, a Vladit, the species Izuku had been most hesitant about. Vampire-like, capable of mind control, with a dark history her people tried to escape. She'd bonded with him specifically because he didn't fear her. 12 partners. 12 species. 12 women who'd chosen him when his own world had thrown him away. You're thinking too loudly again, Xylene's voice echoed in his mind. I can feel it from 3 buildings away. Sorry. Just, taking stock. Of what? Everything we've built. Everything we're about to risk. Because tomorrow, they moved. 3 weeks of preparation had given them intelligence, resources, and a plan. The Commission's control structure had been mapped. Maltruant's temporal agents had been identified. And most importantly, they'd found where the Chronosapiens' influence was strongest. The Hero Public Safety Commission's central headquarters. President Pontu herself was compromised. Xylene had confirmed it through careful psychic probing during the woman's public appearances. A Chronosapien agent had been whispering in her ear for years, shaping policy, directing resources, ensuring that anyone who might threaten Maltruant's plans was neutralized. Like Izuku. The broadcast worked better than we expected, Xylene continued. Public opinion has shifted significantly. The evidence you presented isn't enough. People believe it, but the Commission still holds power. And as long as Maltruant controls the Commission, he controls the response to any threat he presents. Including himself. Exactly. It was elegant, in a horrifying way. Maltruant had spent years, maybe decades, positioning pieces on the board. When he finally made his move, Earth's defenses would be pointed in exactly the wrong direction. Unless Izuku stopped it. Tomorrow, he said out loud, knowing Xylene could hear both the word and the emotions behind it. Tomorrow, she agreed. Are you ready? He looked down at the Shaketrix on his arm. 12 bonds pulsed within it, each one a connection to someone who trusted him, believed in him, loved him in their own way. No, he admitted. But I'm going anyway. The War Council convened at midnight. It wasn't just Izuku's team anymore. The 6 UA students had become permanent fixtures, Bakugo still prickly but genuinely trying, Todoroki steady and analytical, Ida struggling to reconcile his rule-following nature with the current situation, Yaoyorozu providing crucial logistical support, Tokoyami serving as a bridge between light and shadow operations, and Kirishima being the emotional glue that held the human contingent together. Hawks had arrived in person for the first time, his wings folded tight against his back. He'd been burning bridges inside the commission for weeks, gathering allies among the heroes who'd begun to question the official narrative. Present Mike and Midnight had come with him, both looking uncomfortable, both looking determined. The commission building has 3 access points, Yaoyorozu began, projecting a holographic layout she'd created. Main entrance, service tunnel, and rooftop helipad. All heavily guarded, all monitored by quirk detection systems. The systems won't detect us, Saren said, her voice barely above a whisper. Necrophrygian biology doesn't register on standard sensors. Neither does Vladit, Nyx added, her pale features sharp in the dim light. I can move through their security as if it doesn't exist. The problem isn't getting in, Hawk said. It's what we do once we're there. Pontu has emergency protocols that can lock down the entire building and summon every available hero in the greater Tokyo area. Then we don't give her time to activate them. Izuku stepped forward, and the room's attention shifted to him. That still felt strange, being the one everyone looked to, but he'd learned to work with it. Saren and Nyx infiltrate first. They disable communications and the emergency broadcast system. Simultaneously, Volta and Imperia hit the building's power grid, not to shut it down, but to overload it. Every system running at maximum creates chaos. While that's happening, Todoroki asked. Main assault team goes through the front door. Lyra, Diamondra, Kirishima, and Bakugo. Make noise. Draw attention. Make them think that's the real attack. It's not. Bakugo raised an eyebrow. The real attack is me, Ian, and Xylene going straight for Pontu. Izuku's voice hardened. We need to expose the Chronosapian agent controlling her. Publicly, undeniably. If we can show the world that the Commission's leader has been compromised by an alien influence, it breaks Maltruant's control over Earth's defense structure, Hawks finished. Clean. Effective. Risky as hell. Do you have a better option? Hawks was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head. No. I don't. Then we move at dawn. The assault on the Commission headquarters began at 6:47 a.m., precisely when shift change created maximum confusion among the security staff. Izuku felt Saren and Nyx phase through the building's walls, their presences ghostly flickers at the edge of his consciousness. The bonds let him track all his partners now, a constant awareness of their locations and general emotional states. Communications down, Saren's voice whispered in his mind through Xylene's psychic relay. Proceeding to emergency systems. Power grid accessed, Volta reported, her mental voice practically vibrating with excitement. Imperia's charging. On your signal, boss. Izuku looked at Ian and Xylene, flanking him on either side. Behind them, the infiltration team waited, Kindle, Silva, Vex, and Krista, each with specific objectives once they were inside. Signal, he said. The Commission building's lights flickered, surged, and then blazed with impossible brightness. Every screen in the building displayed static. Every door lock cycled randomly between open and closed. And at the front entrance, Lyra's war cry echoed across the plaza as she charged through the security checkpoint like it was made of paper. Battle Clan attacks. The chaos was beautiful. Izuku's team moved through the service entrance while security scrambled to respond to the four-armed alien tearing through their lobby. Kindle melted locks, Silva's vines disabled cameras, Vex moved so fast she was literally invisible, scouting ahead and reporting back in the time it took Izuku to blink. Pontu's on the top floor, Xylene reported. I can feel her, and something else. The Chronosapian agent. It's with her now. Then that's where we go. They hit resistance on floor 15. Commission tactical teams, better trained than the lobby guards, with quirks designed for building defense. Krista absorbed their energy attacks and redirected them. Silva's vines entangled their legs. And when one of them got too close to Izuku, Ian aged his weapon to dust in his hands. Non-lethal, Izuku reminded them, even as he used Tier 2 telekinesis to pin 3 agents against a wall. These people aren't our enemies. They're being used. It was harder than killing would have been. Restraining instead of destroying. Disabling instead of eliminating. But Izuku had made his choice, he wasn't going to become a monster to fight monsters. They reached the executive floor. The hallway was empty, quiet, wrong. Trap, Ian said flatly. Obviously. Let's spring it. The doors at the end of the hallway opened. President Pontu stood in her office, flanked by 2 figures, one human-shaped but obviously mechanical, the other a shimmer in the air that made Izuku's eyes water to look it directly. Midoriya, Pontu said calmly. I wondered when you'd make your move. You know why I'm here. To expose my alien controller. To prove the commission has been compromised. She smiled without warmth. You're too late. The moment you entered the building, I activated Protocol Omega. Every hero in Japan is converging on this location. In approximately 12 minutes, you'll be surrounded by more firepower than even your little army can handle. Then I have 12 minutes. He moved. The mechanical figure intercepted him, fast, strong, clearly designed for combat. But it wasn't alive, not really. It had patterns, predictable responses. Izuku read them in seconds, feinting left and striking right, using Ian's temporal perception to see its counterattack before it happened. His new knife, Kindle's gift, sliced through its chest cavity. The machine sparked and collapsed. The shimmer in the air condensed into something almost visible, the Chronosapien agent, finally revealing itself. It was small compared to Maltruan's projection, more humanoid, but the clock-face eyes were the same. Host of the Chaquetrix, it said in that grinding, ticking voice. My master sends his regards. Your master can deliver them himself. The agent attacked, not physically, but temporally. The air around Izuku aged, rotted, tried to crumble him to dust. Ian was faster. Her counterfield stabilized local time, protecting Izuku while she advanced on the agent with murder in her shifting eyes. Traitor, the agent hissed. You were meant to serve the Chronosapien Collective, I serve no one. Ian's hands glowed with temporal energy. Least of all the creature who murdered my reality. Their battle warped the room around them. Objects aged and reversed, flickered between states of existence. Izuku couldn't directly interfere, the temporal energies were too intense, but he could do something else. He focused on Pontu. The commission president was backing toward a secure room, her hand reaching for a control panel. If she reached it, if she activated whatever backup protocol she had, Xylene's telekinesis slammed her against the wall before she could take another step. The truth now, Xylene said, her golden eyes blazing. You will broadcast the truth. I don't know what you're, don't lie to me. Xylene's psychic power flared, and Pontu screamed. I can see inside your mind. I can see everything. The Chronosapien agent has been controlling you for 7 years. You've ordered the suppression of evidence, the elimination of witnesses, the destruction of innocent lives. You ordered Izuku Midoriya's betrayal. I had no choice, you always had a choice. Izuku stepped forward, his voice cold. You chose power. You chose comfort. You chose to let an alien parasite use you as a puppet rather than resist. You don't understand. Maltruant showed me what happens in the timelines where humanity resists. We lose. Every single time. The only way to survive, is to be slaves. Izuku laughed bitterly. That's not survival. That's slow death. Behind him, the battle between Ian and the Chronosapien agent reached its climax. Ian caught the agent in a temporal lock, freezing it in place, then began systematically unmaking it, not just destroying its physical form but erasing it from the time stream entirely. The agent's scream echoed across multiple dimensions before it cut off abruptly. "It's done," Ian said, breathing hard. "The agent is eliminated. Then it's time." Izuku looked at Xylene. "Can you do it?" "I can try." Xylene closed her eyes. Her psychic power expanded outward, touching every mind in the building, then the surrounding area, then the city, then, Izuku felt it through their bond. She was connecting to every telecommunications device in Japan. Every screen, every radio, every phone. Not controlling them, just opening a channel. "Speak," she said, strain evident in her voice. "I can't hold this for long." Izuku stepped in front of the window. The morning sun illuminated his face as he looked out at the city, his city, the city that had rejected him. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. 3 months ago, I was expelled from UA Academy and branded a traitor based on fabricated evidence. Today, I'm standing in the Hero Public Safety Commission's headquarters, beside the woman who ordered my destruction." He turned to face Pontu, ensuring the psychic broadcast captured her expression: defeated, terrified, guilty. "President Pontu has been under the control of an alien entity for 7 years. Every major policy decision, every resource allocation, every crisis response has been shaped by a being called Maltruant, a creature made of living time who sees humanity as nothing more than pieces on a game board." He felt the attention of millions. Fear. Anger. Confusion. Hope. "The evidence against me was created by Maltruant's agents to isolate me, to prevent me from becoming a threat to his plans. But I'm not alone anymore. I have allies. Partners. People who see through the manipulation and choose to fight against it." Heroes were arriving outside, Izuku could sense them through Xylene's awareness. Endeavor, Hawks, dozens of others. Some hostile, some uncertain, some waiting to see what happened next. "Maltruant is coming. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. And when he arrives, he expects to find a world already under his control. A world of slaves who've been conditioned to obey. I'm here to tell him, and you, that's not going to happen." He raised the Chaquetrix, letting its green glow fill the screen. "I am the host of the Chaquetrix. I have bonded with 12 partners from across dimensions. And together, we're going to stand against Maltruant and everything he represents. We're going to protect this world, not as heroes following orders, but as free people making a choice." The broadcast ended. Xylene collapsed against him, exhausted from the effort. "Did it work?" she whispered. Izuku looked out the window. Below, on the plaza, the assembled heroes weren't attacking. They were waiting. Watching. Processing. Hawk stepped forward, his wings spread wide. "Well," his voice carried across the plaza, "I guess the secret's out. Who's with me?" Slowly, heroes began to move. Not all of them. Endeavor stood rigid, uncertain, but enough. Present Mike, Midnight. Mount Lady. Kamui Woods. Edge Shot. They walked toward the building's entrance. Not to attack. To join. "It worked," Izuku said. The next 3 days were chaos. The commission collapsed almost immediately. Without Pontu's authority, and with her alien compromise exposed, the organization fractured into competing factions. Some tried to maintain control, others defected, still others simply walked away. The hero community split similarly. Endeavor led a faction that insisted on proper channels and due process, refusing to accept that the system they'd served had been corrupted. Hawks led another faction that prioritized immediate threat response over bureaucratic procedure. And in the middle stood Izuku, somehow becoming the pivot point around which everything else turned. "You should take control," Bakugo said during one of their strategy meetings. It was still weird, having Bakugo offer strategic advice instead of insults. "People are looking for leadership. Give it to them. I'm not a leader. Not like that. Then what are you? Izuku thought about it. A symbol, maybe. Something for people to rally around. But the actual leading, that has to be distributed. Ian handles tactical operations. Xylene manages intelligence. You and the others coordinate with the hero community. You're building a government. I'm building an alliance. There's a difference. The difference, Izuku was learning, was that alliances required trust. Governments could function through fear and obligation, alliances needed genuine commitment. Every person who joined their cause had to choose it, and keep choosing it. Some didn't make it. 3 heroes who'd initially supported them changed their minds and left. 2 more were revealed as maltruant sympathizers and had to be contained. The process was messy, painful, and necessary. But the core held. And it grew. By the end of the 3rd day, they had something approaching a functional coalition. Heroes who'd questioned the commission. Support workers who'd seen corruption firsthand. Ordinary citizens who wanted to do something more than wait for salvation. And Izuku's team, now publicly known, publicly supported, served as its foundation. We're not ready, Ian observed during a quiet moment. They were on the island, in the room they'd started sharing after their bonds deepened. Maltruant will come soon. Our coalition is fragile. Our powers, while significant, may not be enough. I know. Then what's your plan? Izuku looked at the Chaquetrix. 12 bonds pulsed within it. 12 partners, 12 species, 12 sets of abilities he could access to varying degrees. The Shaketrix was designed to create something new, he said slowly. A hybrid species capable of facing extinction-level threats. We've been treating it as a weapon, a way to fight Maltruant directly. But what if that's not its purpose? What do you mean? Maltruant is afraid of the Chaquetrix at full activation. He said so himself. Not because of its combat potential, because of what it represents. Evolution. Change. Something outside his control. You're suggesting we complete the activation. I'm suggesting we figure out what that actually means. Izuku met her eyes. You've seen the Chaquetrix in other timelines. What happens when it reaches full potential? Ian was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, she admitted finally. Every timeline where the Chaquetrix approaches full activation, ends. Either Maltruant destroys it, or it destroys him, or both cease to exist simultaneously. The outcome is always obscured. Obscured how? As if something prevents even chronosapien temporal perception from seeing beyond that point. A blind spot in time itself. A blind spot. Something even beings made of living time couldn't perceive. That's what he's afraid of, Izuku realized. Not the power. The uncertainty. For the first time in his existence, he can't see what comes next. And that makes him more dangerous, not less. Or it gives us an advantage. He's fighting to prevent something he doesn't understand. We can do things he won't anticipate because he literally can't anticipate them. Before Ian could respond, the Chaquetrix flared with light, not warning, but recognition. Something was approaching the island. Something powerful. Izuku reached out through his bonds. All 12 partners felt it simultaneously. He's here, Xylene said in his mind. Not a projection. Not an agent. Maltruant himself. The sky tore open over the island. Not a portal, a wound in reality itself. Through it poured Maltruant's true form, a chronosapien of immense size, his body made of interlocking gears and clock hands, each one representing a timeline he'd consumed or collapsed. His eyes were clock faces that spun in opposite directions, and when he moved, time itself stuttered around him. He wasn't alone. Behind him came an army, temporal constructs, time-locked soldiers from dead timelines, and, worst of all, corrupted versions of species the Chaquetrix was meant to bond with. Dark mirrors of Izuku's partners, twisted by Maltruant's influence into weapons against themselves. Host of the Chaquetrix, Maltruant's voice echoed across dimensions. You have grown powerful. Built alliances. Constructed defenses. His clock face eyes focused on the island fortress. All of it meaningless. You came yourself, Izuku called back, standing on the observation deck with his partners arrayed behind him. Finally decided to stop hiding behind puppets. I came because you've become an irritation I can no longer ignore. The Shaketrix approaches activation levels that threaten my control over the time stream. I cannot allow it to continue. Then come stop me. Maltruant's laugh was the sound of grinding gears and dying stars. So eager to perish. Very well. The battle began. It wasn't a fight, it was a war. Maltruant's army crashed against the island's defenses like a temporal tsunami. Constructs phased through walls, corrupted aliens attacked their mirror counterparts, time itself became a weapon as Maltruant warped the battlefield's chronology. Izuku's coalition held, barely. Lyra faced her dark mirror, a corrupted Tetraman with 8 arms instead of 4, each one dripping with temporal decay. They traded blows that shattered the ground beneath them, neither willing to give an inch. You are weak, the dark mirror growled. Your host has made you soft. My host has made me strong. Lyra roared back. Strong enough to break you. She grabbed the corrupted Tetraman with all 4 arms and lifted. Her muscles screamed. Her joints popped. But she'd trained for this, trained with Kirishima, trained with Izuku, trained until her body exceeded its own limits. The dark mirror struggled, 8 arms flailing. Lyra slammed it into the ground hard enough to crater the earth, then did it again, and again, until the corruption began to crack. For the battle clan. The dark mirror shattered into temporal fragments and blew away in the wind. Volta fought her counterpart across the island's electrical grid, 2 beings of living energy trying to drain each other dry. The dark conductoid fed on life force rather than electricity, and every time it touched her, Volta felt herself weakening. But she wasn't alone. Amperia flanked the creature, adding her own electrical output to Volta's. Together, they created a feedback loop so powerful it overwhelmed the dark mirror's ability to absorb. Eat this, evil me. The combined discharge lit up the sky. When it faded, only Volta and Amperia remained. Kindle's battle was more personal. Her dark mirror was everything she'd feared becoming, fire without control, destruction without purpose. It burned everything it touched, including itself. You could have been like me, it whispered. Free. Unrestrained. Burning everything that holds you back. I don't want to burn everything. Kindle's flames condensed into something impossibly hot, not fire anymore but plasma, the heart of a star compressed into her fists. I want to build. She struck once. The plasma punch vaporized the dark mirror instantly. Saren faced a corrupted necrophrygian made of pure entropy, cold beyond cold, absence of everything, the end of all things given form. It didn't fight so much as exist, and everything around it simply stopped. Saren had always feared becoming that. The emptiness at her core, the cold that could swallow worlds. For most of her existence, she'd held it back, afraid of what she might become. Now she embraced it. She went absolute zero. Colder than the void between galaxies. Colder than the spaces between atoms. She became cold itself, and cold was nothing compared to nothing. The entropy creature met her at the point of perfect stillness. For an endless moment, they existed together in that space between existence and non-existence. Then Saren chose existence. She wanted to live. She wanted warmth, the warmth Izuku had given her, the warmth of bonds and belonging and something worth protecting. The entropy creature didn't choose. It couldn't. Choice required existence, and it had never truly existed at all. It faded. Saren remained. Xylene's battle was psychic, a war of minds against a corrupted Uxorite who represented everything her people had failed to become. Despair incarnate, broadcasting hopelessness, trying to convince Xylene that resistance was futile. He will win, the Dark Mirror insisted. He always wins. Every timeline, every possibility, maltruant triumph is inevitable. Nothing is inevitable. Xylene reached through their psychic connection, not to attack but to show. She shared everything she'd felt since bonding with Izuku. The warmth. The hope. The stubborn, irrational belief that things could be better. "This is what you've forgotten," she said. "This is what he's taken from you." The Dark Mirror hesitated. For just a moment, the despair flickered. That moment was enough. Xylene's psychic strike tore through its defenses and shattered the corruption from within. The corrupted Uxorite fell. Xylene caught her, not an enemy anymore but a victim, freed from maltruant's control. "Thank you," the freed Uxorite whispered before fading into dimensional transit, returning to wherever she'd been taken from. Diamandra and Krista fought side by side against corrupted versions of both their species. It was brutal, efficient, and thoroughly Petrosapian, no words, no posturing, just combat until only the real crystalline beings remained. Sylva's vines wrapped corrupted Florina while Vex moved so fast the enemies couldn't track her, striking and vanishing before they could respond. Nyx turned Maltruant's own mind control constructs against each other, proving that Vladats weren't monsters, they were warriors who'd chosen their side. But all of it was secondary. The real battle was happening at the island's center. Izuku versus Maltruant. The Chronosapian was vast. His true form towered over the facility, each gear in his body representing centuries of accumulated power. Fighting him directly was suicide, his temporal manipulation could age Izuku to dust or regress him to non-existence. So Izuku didn't fight directly. He moved. Constant motion, unpredictable patterns, using every ability his bonds provided. Cronian time perception let him see Maltruant's attacks coming, Uxorite telekinesis deflected the worst of them, Tetraman strength let him strike back when openings appeared. But it wasn't enough. He was barely surviving, let alone winning. "You cannot defeat me," Maltruant said, almost gently. "I am time itself. Everything you do, I have already seen. Everything you attempt, I have already countered. Have you seen this?" Izuku reached through his bond with Ian. Tier 2 wasn't enough. He needed more. He needed Tier 3. Convergence. It happened faster than the first time. Maybe because they'd practiced, maybe because the stakes demanded it, maybe because their bond had grown beyond anything the Chaquetrix normally allowed. Ian flowed into him, or he flowed into her, or they both became something neither had been alone. Epic Deku. A being that existed across multiple time states simultaneously. Past, present, and future overlapping in a single consciousness. Izuku's analytical mind combined with Ian's temporal experience to create something capable of matching Maltruant moment for moment. Convergence, Maltruant hissed. "You think this will save you? I've destroyed Tier 3 bonds in 1,000 timelines, not like this." Because Izuku wasn't stopping at one bond. He reached out to Xylene. To Lyra. To every partner on the island. Not convergence, the bonds weren't deep enough for that, but something else. Something the Shaketrix had never done before. Resonance cascade. 12 bonds activating simultaneously. 12 species channeling their power through a single point. Not fusion but harmony, an orchestra of abilities conducted by a single will. Izuku's body couldn't contain it. Shouldn't have been able to contain it. But the Chaquetrix adapted, evolved, did exactly what it had been designed to do, created something new. He rose into the air, surrounded by shifting auras of every element his partners commanded. Time, psychic energy, physical force, cold, electricity, heat, crystal, plant matter, speed, cosmic energy, darkness, and sound all flowing through him, from him, becoming him. Omnideku. Maltruant's clock-face eyes spun wildly. For the first time since the battle began, something like fear crossed his ancient features. This is impossible. The Chaquetrix cannot, the Shaketrix evolves. Izuku's voice resonated with 12 harmonics. Through connection. Through love. Through choosing each other despite everything that tries to tear us apart. He moved, faster than time, stronger than reality, more present than existence itself. His strike hit Maltruant not just physically but temporally, psychically, conceptually. The Chronosapien reeled. Gears cracked. Clock hands bent. You cannot kill me. I am beyond death. I exist across every timeline, I'm not trying to kill you. Izuku focused the Chaquetrix's core function, the one Talia had died to deliver. Localized timeline rewriting. Not changing what happened but what could have happened. He reached into Maltruant's existence and found the moment. The choice. The instant, eons ago, when a young Chronosapien had decided that control was more important than connection. In that moment, Izuku said, you could have chosen differently. I chose power, you chose fear. You saw the chaos of existence and instead of embracing it, you tried to control it. Every timeline you've destroyed, every being you've manipulated, every horror you've committed, all of it stems from one terrified choice. The Chaquetrix pulsed. Reality wavered. I'm not going to kill you, Maltruant. I'm going to give you what you never had, a second chance. The rewrite activated. It wasn't dramatic. No explosions, no screaming, no theatrical collapse. Just a ripple through time as a different choice propagated through a different timeline. The Maltruant before them didn't disappear. He changed. The gears in his body stopped their aggressive spinning. The clock-face eyes synchronized. The overwhelming presence of temporal menace faded into something merely powerful. What? The Chronosapien looked at his hands, still mechanical, still ancient, but somehow different. What did you do? I showed you who you could have been. Izuku felt the resonance cascade fading, the power too great to sustain. A protector instead of a conqueror. A guide instead of a tyrant. The timelines I destroyed, are still destroyed. I can't undo what you did. Neither can you. Izuku landed on the ground, his partners reforming around him. But you can choose what you do next. Maltruant was silent for a long moment. His army, what remained of it, had stopped fighting. Without his active will driving them, the constructs and corrupted beings simply waited. I remember both, the Chronosapien said finally. Both versions of myself. The tyrant and the other. They are both me. That's the point. You're not determined by what you were. You're defined by what you choose to be. Another silence. Then, slowly, Maltruant's form began to shrink. Compress. He was still vast, still powerful, but no longer overwhelming. I will, consider this. His voice was uncertain now, searching. The timelines I've touched, there is much damage to assess. Much to contemplate. Take your time. Izuku smiled despite his exhaustion. You're made of it. Something that might have been a laugh echoed from the Chronosapien. Then he turned and walked back toward the wound in reality, his army following, dissolving into temporal fragments as they went. The wound sealed behind him. The sky returned to normal. The battle was over. The aftermath was quieter than Izuku expected. His partners gathered around him, exhausted but triumphant. 12 women who'd crossed dimensions to stand with him, who'd fought impossible odds, who'd helped him do something that shouldn't have been possible. That was. Xylene shook her head. I don't have words. Crazy works, Volta offered. Also, awesome. Terrifying. The best fight ever. You rewrote a god, Ian said, her voice still carrying echoes of their convergence. The Chaquetrix was designed for evolution, but this was something more. It was all of us. Izuku looked at each of them in turn. I couldn't have done any of it alone. The resonance cascade only worked because of the bonds we've built. Because we trust each other. Because we love each other, Kindle corrected, her flames warm instead of hot. That's what made the difference. Not power, love. It was cheesy. It was absolutely cheesy. But it was also true. The heroes who joined their coalition were approaching now, Hawks in the lead, with Bakugo and the others close behind. They looked shell-shocked, which was fair. They just witnessed something beyond their understanding. So, Hawk said, stopping a few feet away. That happened. It did. Maltruant's gone. For real. Not gone. Changed. Whether that change sticks. Izuku shrugged. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, the immediate threat is over. And the commission? The hero system? Everything else that's broken. Izuku looked at his partners, then at the heroes, then at the island fortress they'd built together. We rebuild. Better than before. Not a system that controls people, an alliance that connects them. Different heroes, different methods, different approaches, but all working toward the same goal. You make it sound easy. It won't be. Nothing worth doing ever is. Izuku smiled, a real smile, the first unguarded one he'd shown in months. But we're not alone. None of us are alone. That's the whole point. Bakugo stepped forward. His face was complicated, guilt and respect and something that might have been hope all tangled together. I want to help, he said. Really help. Not because I'm trying to make up for what I did, that's not possible. But because. He struggled for words. Because you showed me what being a hero actually means. Not power. Not winning. Connection. Izuku studied his former friend, former bully, former tormentor. The person who'd led his destruction now offering to help build something new. Okay, he said finally. Okay. Okay, you can help. But if you ever betray us again, I know 12 alien women who would be happy to destroy me. Bakugo almost smiled. I've seen what they can do. Trust me, I'm motivated to stay loyal. Lyra cracked her knuckles meaningfully. Good. The sun set over the island as Izuku stood on the observation deck one last time. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The hero system needed rebuilding. Public trust needed restoring. There were still threats out there, maybe even Maltruant again, if his change didn't hold. The work was just beginning. But tonight, he could rest. Xylene joined him first, her psychic presence warm and familiar. Then Ian, her hand finding his. The others followed, Lyra and Saren, Volta and Kindle, Diamandra and Silva, Vex and Imperia, Krista and Nyx. 12 partners, surrounding him, their bonds humming with connection. So what now? Xylene asked. Izuku looked at the Chaquetrix. It glowed steadily, warmly, not demanding, just present. Ready for whatever came next. The signals are still out there, he said. More potential bonds. More people who need help. More worlds to protect, Ian added. More adventures, Volta agreed, sparking with excitement. More battles, Lyra rumbled happily. Izuku smiled. 3 months ago, he'd been alone in a junkyard, wondering why he bothered staying alive. Now he had a family, not the one he'd been born into, but the one he'd chosen. The one that had chosen him. Then let's go find them. The Shaketrix pulsed in agreement. And somewhere across the dimensions, new signals began to pulse in response, drawn by warmth, by connection, by the promise of something worth fighting for. The story was just beginning. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.